Story 1. My wife hid her daughter with her lover, pretending she was a niece, until I uncovered the truth and served her with divorce papers. I'm stuck in a weird situation. I don't even know how to start. I'm 34M, married to Harper, 28F, for over a year. I met her 2 years back when she was working as a waitress in a restaurant. I worked as a store manager for a supermarket. Her restaurant was a few buildings away from my supermarket, and we used to take the same bus while returning from work. We took the last bus home. She lived one stop before mine. We wouldn't have noticed each other had it been normal, busy time, but that was the last bus on that route, and it was empty. We commuted with each other for at least a month but didn't talk to each other. I used to notice her. She was beautiful, and she didn't look like someone from the city. After a month, she didn't show up for 3 or 4 days. I thought she had left the job or changed her shift. When I saw her again, I couldn't help but ask her if she was on leave. She said yes, she was under the weather. That's how we started talking. She lived with a roommate who was a cashier at a different restaurant. We became friends and liked each other's company. We both were from remote places of the country, and we got along well with each other. We didn't have family living in the city. Neither did we have many friends. I was in the city for 3 or 4 years, and she arrived 2 years ago, so our friends were mostly work friends. After a few months, my roommate got another job in a different part of the city, and he moved out. Harper and I started living together. I made the first move. Not that I was desperate, but I loved her. She was very timid and eventually got dependent on me. I liked protecting her. After a year of knowing each other, I asked her if she wanted to meet my parents. She said yes. I took her with me on the next visit to my house. My family was delighted to host her. We stayed there for a day. She said she really liked my family. After a few months, I proposed to her for marriage. She said yes. I insisted on meeting her family. She had no one except her mother, an elder sister, and a niece. Harper was very close to her niece. This became a problem for me. We'll come to that eventually. I went to meet them. They were very sweet people. Yeah, one more thing. Harper was the breadwinner of her house. Her mother and sister worked at their farm, but the money was not enough to sustain, so Harper moved out to the city and got a job. I was proud to know this. I started respecting her more than before, that she was a responsible girl who was feeding her family and not like those city girls leeching on their BF or father's money. We got married after a year of knowing each other. It was a small, intimate affair with close family and friends. We got married at my family church that has been our tradition. Harper and her family were fine to come down to my hometown. Ever since we started dating, Harper used to talk about her niece. Let's call her SEI. She is 6 years old. She talked about having a good life for SEI. I encouraged her because why not? It was such a noble thing to do. Harper said her sister has been a single mother. Her husband abandoned her when SEI was a few months old. Since then, she has been living with Harper and her mother. Harper said she never wanted to get married until she met me. She said that her previous boyfriends didn't like Harper's closeness with her niece and that she was providing for her. I didn't see that to be a problem. I saw that to be Harper's responsibility to take care of her family, and the way Harper took care of her niece was an act of good deeds. Harper wanted to bring SEI to the city and get her admitted to a modern school. SEI was studying in a community school that lacked modern infrastructure. I asked her if her sister would be okay to let her small girl live so far from her. Harper said, "Why not? It is for her own good future." Harper had a plan of taking a culinary course and switching her career to be a chef that would pay her better. She had been saving money for that course. Harper used to contribute to the household expenses when we were living together. But after our wedding, she said she wanted to save extra to be able to take her course as early as possible. She said it was a matter of 3 months. I agreed to bear the expenses alone. It was difficult for me to bear for 2 people. I lived paycheck to paycheck with 0 savings. After completing her course, she started hunting for a chef's job. She had a false notion that she would get a high-paying chef's job just after her course. High-paying jobs need experience. She got a job, but the pay was not what she was expecting. It was slightly higher than what she used to get as a waitress. As soon as she got the job, She insisted on bringing her niece and getting her admitted to a good school. See, I'm not against the idea that she wants to educate her niece, but she has to be realistic in her approach. I asked her to wait for another year and get a better-paying job before taking on such a huge responsibility. I don't want to sound greedy, neither am I behind her for money, but the thing is, Harper had stopped contributing anything to the house. Earlier, she said she wanted to save for the course, but now she is saying that she is saving for Sim's admission fee. I have tried to make her understand that it is a big responsibility, and she is clearly not ready for it, but whenever I bring up this topic, she gets upset and says that I'm acting like her previous boyfriends who are reluctant to let her take the responsibility. She says that she won't push Sim's responsibility on me, but how do I make her explain that I was indeed carrying her responsibility for over a year now? I know I'll be labeled as insensitive for not supporting her in this. Trust me, I really want to support her, but my earnings don't allow me to do so. I don't have a fancy job which can bear the expenses of the two of us. I also have this feeling that Harper would exhaust all her salary on semi-school fees, and I would have to bear the household expenses for three of us. I want to know the neutral perspective. Am I the a-hole for stopping Harper from taking her niece's responsibility? Update 1. Thanks for all the assurance. Sometimes I used to guilt trip that I was being insensitive towards SEI, but you guys are right. Harper was impractical about the situation. A few weeks ago, Harper visited her hometown. This time, she brought SEI along. She didn't tell me that she was going to bring her right away. When I asked her, she said, "Yeah, ain't we discussing this for a long time?" She took SEI for admission, but it was denied. SEI couldn't crack the school interview. Her knowledge was weak for the class she was interviewing for. There was one more problem. The money was short. Harper decided to put SEI into private coaching to brush up her knowledge and, meanwhile, took another job to save for the admission fee. As I dreaded, the household expenses fell on me solely. Now the situation has become such that Harper and I barely talk to each other. She has a day job as a chef and works as a waitress in the evenings. On her day off, she spends time with her niece. I didn't complain about it because I'm also getting distant from Harper. I don't know, I just don't feel that intimacy and love for her, maybe because of the way she had been acting for the last few months. I don't come in her priority list at all. I feel she only cares for her family and her niece. I don't feel the love and warmth from her anymore. Whenever I confront her regarding the house bills, she requests me to bear them for some time until she gets Simi admitted to the school. She said that she had calculated everything. Her salary should be able to cover Simi's school fee and their share of the household expenses. I have tried to make her understand that it is not just about the school fees. There are thousands of other expenses in the school, like projects, excursions, and whatnot. I even suggested admitting SEI to another school with a lower fee bracket, but Harper insists on admitting her to an international school. I don't know why she is so desperate to admit SEI to the international school right away. I mean, the admission season is over. I asked her to wait for a year, but she looks in a hurry and is even ready to pay extra and get her admitted midterm. I don't know how long I will be able to control my anger before I explode. I'm not an impulsive or aggressive person, so I'm putting up with her as long as I can. I don't even know where this situation is leading to. Would appreciate any advice on dealing with this situation. Update 2. Guys, it is not getting any better. My marriage is going downhill. 3 months ago, Harper got a head chef's job with a good joining bonus. The joining bonus and her savings were sufficient for Sim's admission. This time, she passed her admission test as well. But one new concern came up. The school wanted to interview the parents as well. Harper didn't inquire about the admission procedure before. There's a new thing with this new age school that they want to verify if the children were coming from a decent family background, which would enhance their school culture. The school adopted this policy with the rising number of drug addict parents in the city. They don't want children of such parents in the school because they are a bad influence on other kids. I know it's unfair for those kids, but that's how it is. The problem is, Harper's sister has never been to school. International schools admit only those children whose parents are at least high school graduates. Harper came up with a weird solution to this problem. She wanted us to adopt SEI as our daughter. Yes, she said she would have adopted her as a single mother, but now that we are married, we have to adopt her as parents. I'm not against a noble act, but it should be my decision and not something that is rubbed on me, and Harper was doing that. She was rubbing her niece's responsibility on me. She doesn't realize that adoption means giving my name to her. It's a huge responsibility, and I'm just not ready for it. After she asked me to volunteer for adoption, I asked her the difficult question which I was avoiding until now. I asked her about our own children. I told her that she was planning to spend all her income on her niece. Then what would happen when we have our own children? How do we manage the expenses then? I honestly told that raising a baby was just not possible for me alone. Even people doing corporate jobs need two people's income to raise children and lead a good life. She snapped back and said, "Let's not have children then." I lost my shit and stormed out of the house, wishing her good life with her niece. That was the first time I ever lost my cool. She followed me outside and kept saying sorry. I shrugged her off and left the house. She called me nonstop and sent a voicemail that she didn't mean that. She just said it in a moment of rage. She kept saying sorry and how much she loved me and all that. I came back home and told her that I wouldn't adopt her niece as my daughter. She tried to convince me, but I made a clear stand that I wouldn't. She didn't say anything further but is not happy with my decision. I know I should have had this confrontation with her regarding our children way before she brought her niece into our lives. Trust me, I never saw that coming. We discussed about having kids after 2 or 3 years, and she was up for it. I don't know how else should I have figured it out. I don't know, guys. If it's just me who is overthinking about the situation, or if any of you also feel weird about her obsession with her niece. I don't know, maybe I'm just overthinking. I don't have any siblings, so maybe I don't know how it feels to love your siblings unconditionally. She said she loved her sister and her niece unconditionally. Update 3. I'm so glad that I posted my concern here. I get so many fresh perspectives which I would have never thought about. Yes, I took the advice and got a PI on Harper. If you guys didn't hint towards that angle, I would have never thought about it. I mean, people hire PIs when they suspect them of cheating or anything. It was not there in my case. It was just a money matter over her niece. But glad I hired a PI. It indeed came out to be a cheating case. The agency found that SEI was actually Harper's daughter and not her sister's. Whatever she told about her sister was the actual story of Harper. She had a boyfriend in her hometown who impregnated her and fled when he got to know about it. By then, it was too late for abortion. Harper lived in a small town, and this news could become gossip in no time. Harper's mother sent her to her sister. She stayed with her sister until SEI turned 1 or something. Meanwhile, her sister also faced problems with her marriage, which eventually led to a divorce. Both of the sisters moved back to their mother with SEI. They told everyone that SEI was her sister's daughter. It was a convenient lie. They were surviving on working on farmlands and doing other odd jobs, but it was getting difficult for them to survive, so Harper moved to the city. She was the only one in her family to have completed her high school. She also wanted to build a good life for her daughter. Sim's birth certificate had Harper's name as the mother. I was just so disheartened to know this. I wept in the agency office. I threw Sim's birth certificate on Harper's face. She turned pale and stood numb. She fumbled and said that she was afraid to inform me before, that she had adopted SEI right after her birth. She didn't know that I had the complete information about her background. She said that her previous boyfriends dumped her when they got to know that she had adopted her sister's daughter. So she had hidden this from me. She had the audacity to create one more lie on my face. I shouted at her that I knew all her effing truth and threw the agency's full report in her face. She glanced through it and gave up. She understood that I knew everything and there was no point lying further. She broke down and admitted that all of it was true. I asked her why she didn't tell me the truth. She said she had a long-term boyfriend before me, but he dumped her when she disclosed her past. Basically, he didn't want to take the responsibility of her child. I asked her if it was pre-planned to rub the adoption thing on me. She said yes. I no longer felt sorry for her. If she had told me the truth before while we were dating, I might have agreed to adopt her daughter. There are so many men who marry single mothers, only if she was honest about her past. But she chose to play around. I asked her to leave the house and told her that I would be divorcing her. She cried and begged, but I was unmoved. It was nighttime, I asked her to leave the next morning. I checked into a hotel that night because I didn't want her to manipulate me. Not that I wasn't strong at my decision, but that emotional drama was just so mentally draining. The next day, when I went home, she was gone with her daughter. It's been a week now. I have filed for the divorce. Our marriage wrapped up within a year, and I don't have any substantial wealth to fight for, so I'm hoping that the divorce would be smooth. Update 4. When the divorce papers reached her, Harper came running to my house. I don't know why it was such a surprise to her. She said she didn't expect me to divorce her on such a trivial matter. She had hidden her daughter, posed it as her niece, and then insisted on me to adopt her. All these were trivial matters to her. She said, "I thought you were just angry for the time being, so I gave you the time to cool off. You should not make impulsive decisions. Let's fix this together." And all that BS. Her point was that she did not cheat on me, neither emotionally nor physically. She did not talk to anyone or sleep with anyone while she was with me. Fair enough, but hiding such grave information, isn't that cheating? I said, "Whatever be it, she can call it whatever she wants." I wanted a divorce. Even if I forgave her for the lies, how do I trust her that she would prioritize me over her daughter, or at least prioritize it equally? She was reluctant to have children as well. I said I had fallen out of love after knowing the truth, and even before that, when she prioritized her niece/daughter before our marriage. She didn't even let me come close to her prior to the revelation. It was many months ago that we got intimate. She was either at work or tired because of the work. If this is not a red flag to call off the marriage, then nothing would ever be. She begged me that she loved me and would do everything to save the marriage. I told her she could plead and beg how much she wanted, but it was all falling on deaf ears. She left the house after that. The next day, her mother called me and cried. She said that her elder daughter is already divorced, and she cannot bear to see her younger daughter following the same path. She asked me to give her one last chance to Harper. They stood on the grounds that Harper was loyal to me. I apologized to her that she had to plead with me, but I cannot do anything about it. After a month of to and fro, she finally signed the divorce papers. I cannot feel better than this. It was so suffocating, my goodness. I thought divorce would be difficult for me, but thankfully my marriage was not that long to have a long-lasting grief. Also, over the last 3 or 4 months, I had grown out of love after she brought SEI into her house. It was a blessing in disguise that helped me get emotionally detached from Harper, and now this divorce seems nothing but liberating. One advice for me would be to run a background before falling for anyone. Doesn't matter how much you trust them or if you don't find them shady, run a background even before getting serious because it's a downhill, brother. I will be online for a while if someone needs to catch up. I cannot thank you guys enough for the support I got from this community. Much grateful for it. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My wife left me without telling me anything after I cheated on her. 2 years later, I found out she is remarried and pregnant in another country. At 35, I'm a man, and my wife is 36. I know I'm aware of my faults. I know I screwed up. She and I had something beautiful. She is still the love of my life. We were together for 10 years, 2 dating and 8 married. But I made a huge mistake and cheated on her. It was just once, just one damn time. Somehow she found out. I never knew how, because I haven't been able to talk to her since then. I guess she found something on my phone. I came home that afternoon as usual and everything felt weird. The house felt emptier. I quickly realized that her things were gone. Panicked, I started calling her over and over, but her phone didn't even ring. Suddenly, I saw some papers on the table. She was divorcing me. Under the divorce papers, there was a note that said, "This is what you do with cheaters." That was the last thing I got from her 2 years ago. Now, of course, I called the contact information for her lawyer, who has been the only bridge between us. But he just told me that he was her legal representative and that she didn't want to see me. I fought. I got angry. But in the end, her lawyer just told me that it would be better if I got my own lawyer. I didn't want to. I absolutely refused to accept that 10 years of relationship would end like this. I know I have failed, but I always wanted to fix it. I know that if she gave me the chance, I could make that sweet and special girl I met more than 10 years ago fall in love with me again. I know that I can make her forgive me. After all, many couples go through similar things and get over it. Why can't we be one more couple in that statistic? Why, after 8 years of marriage, am I thrown away like garbage for a mistake? I don't deserve so much indifference. I haven't been able to see her or even hear her voice in 2 years. 2 years of not being able to see or talk to the person you love the most is too much of a punishment. This situation has destroyed me emotionally, mentally, and even physically. I ended up consuming an unhealthy amount of alcohol, weeks of barely eating, not sleeping. I was a zombie for months. I was just functioning on automatic. I wanted to die, but I couldn't let myself die because I always held on to hope that she would come back. My therapist says it's really hard when you can't get closure from a relationship because your mind can't process that the relationship is over. So you're always thinking that person will knock on the door or that you'll wake up from sleep and they'll be there by your side. The divorce was finalized over a year ago. I'll be honest, I didn't make it easy. I didn't want to get divorced, and I still don't understand how we can be divorced. I asked for couples therapy, but she refused. I know from my lawyer that her lawyer advised her to go at least once or twice, but she refused. Took quite a while, but finally the divorce happened. I can't even describe the feeling I felt and still feel, like a piece of me had been cut out. I know I hurt her. I know I failed, but I think we all deserve a second chance. When I couldn't take the pain anymore, I decided to start therapy. My therapist doesn't give me advice to get her back. He only focuses on me moving on with my life, encouraging me to meet new people and go out on dates. But I don't want to. At this point, I'm not even interested in sex anymore. A few days ago, something happened that completely shattered me. I was having a few beers with my friend at my house. Let's call him Nick. We were both pretty drunk. I started talking about my wife, and he said to me, "You should put more effort into getting over her. She's over you and is happy having a life away from you. You should do the same. You can't live in this self-pity all your life." Something in his words hit me, but not in the way he expected. He spoke with a lot of confidence that my wife is over me and is happy now. How does he know that? At this point, I got angry and started pressuring him to talk. He refused. I pressed as hard as I could. I cried. I begged him to tell me if he knew something. I needed to know something about her, until he finally told me. His wife has been in contact with my wife for the last year. They were great friends, and I remember Sabrina, my friend's wife, being very upset about losing contact with my wife. The thing is that my wife went to live in Norway, got married to a guy there, and is about 7 months pregnant. I felt like dying. I literally felt like dying with this information. How could she do this to me? How could it be that while I was crying, getting drunk, missing her, and wanting to die every day, she was happily on the other side of the world getting married and getting pregnant by another guy? How could it be that she didn't have a child with me in many, many years, to the point that I thought she was infertile, but she got pregnant by this new guy so easily? Where did this guy come from? I have no answers for absolutely anything, and I feel like I can't go on with my life without these answers. The only thing I can think of is that she had revenge sex with the first Norwegian guy she came across and got pregnant and decided to keep the baby. Maybe she got married because she wanted to stay in that country legally, and I guess, like in most countries, getting married is a good option for that. I don't know, these thoughts are killing me. I refuse to think that she is in love with him. I need to contact her. I need to talk to her. I need to know what's going on because she acts like our 10-year history and 8-year marriage is nothing to her. I need advice on how to act. I feel the impulse to travel to where she is and look for her. But how could I do that? I don't know what city she's in. I don't know where she lives. I don't have a number to contact her. She closed her social media. Her family is small, they don't live in the same country as me, and all of them blocked me. I'm totally lost. I don't know what to do at this point. I still want her back, yes, even pregnant. I feel like this is a nightmare, and I need to wake up now. Edit. I read almost all the comments, and when I say almost all, I really mean almost all. It's hard to process all the crap that's been said about me. I feel like you guys forget that you are talking to a person and not an inanimate object. I thought I might find more empathy by sharing my story here. Just two people feeling empathy towards me, and their comment made me feel better. I'm not looking for validation or for anyone to say that what I did is okay. I know it's not, and I have to live with that daily. I will try to respond, but of course I'll never be able to respond to all the comments over here. I guess none of you know what it's like to have a broken heart and not be able to get over a person. You don't decide who you love, and you don't decide when you get over someone. It happens when it has to. To those who doubt my story, unfortunately it's real. I would love this to be fake, but sadly it is not, and I have to live with this mess every day. Everyone assumes she's happy now. I don't know, how do you know? I haven't seen her in 2 years. I can't have any idea if she's happier or not. Being pregnant, it doesn't necessarily mean happiness, and being married either. We don't really know the circumstances of this marriage. Maybe she got married because she got pregnant and felt alone in a country where she has no one, and she just held on to the other guy. Of course, I blame myself for this. This wouldn't have happened if I had been a better person and a better husband to her. But unfortunately, I can't change what I did wrong. The only thing I could do is try to make it up to her. But how do you make it up to someone who doesn't want to give you the chance to do so? Some people said that she doesn't owe me a second chance. That was hard to read, but I understand that maybe she doesn't have to. I never openly blamed her for the infertility issues. It was just a thought. We both went to the doctor, and in both cases the tests revealed that everything was fine. I never understood why we couldn't conceive, and the thought that she was infertile did cross my mind, and of course the idea that I was too. But in most cases of infertility, it is due to a female factor. Maybe that's why I thought that. Horrible things were said, like I would hurt my ex-wife if she were here. I never physically hurt her, and I never will. I am not an abusive person. I am not a monster. I know it's hard to empathize with me. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt her way beyond what I can say. But I am not a monster or a narcissist. Some people said that I never loved her, otherwise I wouldn't have cheated on her. This statement doesn't seem fair to me. Do you think you can kidnap the concept of love and tell another person what their real feelings are? Do you think you are inside my head or heart? Only then would you know what I feel. You can't tell me that I don't love her. There hasn't been a day since she left that I don't regret it. No one can tell me this isn't love. Lastly, humans are more complex than most people here think. Just because I cheated on her doesn't mean I don't love her or that I don't have feelings. I called what I did a mistake because how else would I call it? I thought part of accepting blame is accepting that it was my mistake. But everyone here takes those words as if I'm trying to twist the situation when that's not the case. You've completely twisted my words. I know how much I hurt her. Maybe in my post I'm focusing on myself because I was never able to explain myself to her. Since then, for me it's been one attempt after another to put together a story in my head that doesn't make sense. I lost everything from one moment to the next. I simply tried to be open with my feelings, but it doesn't seem to work here, not for me at least. I know the damage I did to her. This woman left her life, the country she immigrated to, her friends, even her job. No one does that for a breakup unless you're going through some level of absolute pain. I understand that. I can see and feel the pain I put her through, and that makes me feel even more guilty. Honestly, I'm going to respond to some comments below and then log off for a couple of days until I feel in a better place. Comments. Comment 1. I want to know who you cheated on her with. That's pretty important information. OP. It was a random woman that used to go to the same gym. Nothing important. It didn't mean anything, not even for a second. I just was being an idiot. Comment 2. You don't seem to have any remorse for cheating. You just mentioned she somehow found out. So you were not planning on telling her. It's been 2 years. You need to accept responsibility for your actions and let go. She's never coming back. There's billions of people out there. Just heal and improve yourself with therapy, and I'm sure you'll get a second chance with someone else. You're only 35. OP. I do feel remorse for cheating. I'm a big mess right now, but I do feel remorse. Comment 3. You may still be in love. She is not, at least not with you. OP. So love just fades away just like this? At the end of the day, this sometimes makes me feel like I'm actually more loyal than her to our relationship, meaning she left, remarried, got pregnant. Looks like she completely forgot about me, and I'm here sitting, crying while I drink some wine and respond to some strangers about our relationship. I still love her, but for her it was so easy to get over me. Comment 4. If only half the people had the self-respect your ex-wife has. OP. I don't blame her. I understand the pain I caused her, but I also think there are many couples who go through this and move on, especially when it was just one time. I never had a side relationship for months. I didn't cheat on her with multiple women. I didn't get another woman pregnant. I didn't cheat on her with her friend. Cheating is wrong, but are you really going to put me on the same level as a guy who cheated on his wife for years or who cheated on his wife with her sister? It's not an excuse, but I'm asking for some coherency here. Update. These days have been very strange. At times I feel numb, and at others desperate. A lot of things have happened. I want to start by answering something and then I will update. Some people asked, why Norway? I don't know exactly, but she is a polyglot. She speaks 6 languages. Many of these languages are connected to cultures that she always liked. Norwegian is just one of them. She has always been interested in Norwegian culture. She has been there before, but she is also interested in other cultures and speaks other languages. So for me, that was never an indicator that she might have gone to this country. Regarding the update, the first thing I will say is that the post reached some people in my circle. Sabrina's sister. She knows the story and realized it was me. She told Sabrina. Sabrina is angry at Nick for revealing information. Nick is angry at me for the post and because he says I pressured him to talk. I am angry at both of them for being 2 assholes who watched me suffer for 2 years and decided not to help me. They didn't care about my marriage. Why should I care about their marriage? Sabrina could have given me my ex-wife's phone number a long time ago, but she decided to prioritize her friendship with my ex instead of helping 2 friends mend their marriage. Meanwhile, no one cared about my feelings. I'm done with them at this point. Regarding my ex-wife, I've been thinking a lot. She can't just disappear. I convinced myself that if I searched hard enough, I could find something related to her. I follow some of her relatives from a fake Instagram account, but I never found anything related to her. I searched a lot, really a lot, and found a name that I had seen before but that hadn't caught my attention until then. It was a lady with a name that is not typical in the United States or my wife's country. She is not American, and a very strange last name. I went to her Instagram profile and she had no pictures or anything, just a small profile picture that you can barely see. I decided to look her up on Facebook and found the same lady with the same profile picture. Only her Facebook profile is quite open. She is indeed a lady from Norway. I checked everything I could on this profile. I was convinced that it had something to do with my wife. How else would a relative of hers have this woman in their friends? I saw a lot of pictures. People, plants, mountains, gardens, lakes, flowers. Typical things that an older lady posts. Until I came across a picture where my ex was dressed as a bride hugging a guy. I had to translate the text. The lady was congratulating her son on his wedding. There were a few more pictures, not many. There were even some members of my ex's family in the wedding pictures. The dates of the pictures were from a year ago. A year ago she married this guy. I don't understand. How could it happen so fast? When did she meet him? I honestly thought she got married after she got pregnant, not before. This baffles me even more. After that, I found another picture. It was a group picture and she was far away, but of course I recognized her. The same guy was with his hands on her shoulders, hugging her. This picture was from February 2023. To be clear, she left in May 2022. How is she with someone in February 2023? Only 9 months, and she's already in a stable enough relationship that he's introduced her to his family? What the hell is going on here? I feel like I have even more questions in my head now. I know I shouldn't be upset, but I am. I know I lost her because I was an idiot, but it's hard to get this feeling out of my head right now. Anyways, for those who had imagined this fantasy that my ex is with some kind of Norwegian Chris Hemsworth, let me tell you it's not like that. This guy is too tall, too blonde, too pale, hair too long, and kind of chunky, to be honest. He looks more like the old cartoon of Vikings and is definitely not a Chris Hemsworth. I managed to find his FB profile, but he has almost nothing there. His profile says he's an engineer, an engineer who wears metal band t-shirts at 38. I don't know how to take this because I'm an engineer myself, just in a different field. Why would she look for a man with the same profession as me? My wife has always liked heavy metal, which I always found nasty, but I never complained. After all, your partner doesn't have to have the same musical tastes as you. I mentioned this because maybe that was the way they connected. She used to connect easily with people who like the same type of music. I don't know, but I honestly look at it and think, where did she get this guy from? I mean, he can definitely do better than this. The pregnancy thing still messes with my head. I try not to think about it. I can't understand it. I'm not infertile like the comments suggest. I've been to the doctor and I know I'm not, but God, it kills me to think that she's going to have another man's child. I don't get it. I feel like this is beyond anything I ever imagined. And no, I'm not going to go to Norway. I'm not going to try to contact her. I still want to see her and talk to her, but I obviously can't force her to do that. I have too much to deal with right now and too much to talk about in therapy now. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My husband and my sister had an affair, but my whole family took their side and cut me off. Later, when she left him for another man, now everyone is begging me to forgive him. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but recent events have pushed me to a breaking point, and I need perspective from this community. My ex-husband, Jake, 34M, and I were married for 8 years before everything fell apart. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and had what I thought was a solid, happy marriage. Jake was charming, dependable, and good-looking, the type of guy people would look at and think, wow, she's lucky. We shared common goals. He was always supportive of my career, and everything just felt right. I thought we had something solid, and I never imagined in a million years how wrong I was. Growing up, I was always the responsible one in the family. My parents would praise me for being the dependable, mature daughter who would make a good wife one day. On the other hand, my younger sister, Lucy, was the golden child. She was beautiful, bubbly, and the life of the party. My parents adored her, and it felt like everyone who met her was instantly charmed by her. But I never really thought about it too much because she was my sister, and I loved her. Sure, my parents always seemed to focus on her, but I just brushed it off as typical family dynamics. I thought the whole perfect daughter thing was just the way they saw her. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. Lucy was around us often because our families were close, and she and Jake got along too well, as it turns out. I came home early this one day from work because I wasn't feeling well. The house was quiet, and I noticed one of Lucy's bags in the living room. At first, I thought she must have just come over to visit. But as I walked down the hallway, I could hear them talking in our bedroom. My heart sank, but I told myself to calm down, to not jump to conclusions. But when I opened the door and saw them, it was like my entire world just crumbled around me. I'll never forget the shock on their faces when they saw me standing there. It felt like I was stuck in a nightmare. I barely remember the confrontation. I think I was too shocked to process it all in real time. I left the house that day with whatever I could grab, and I didn't look back. That should have been the worst of it, but somehow what happened afterward hurt even more. When I reached out to my parents, hoping they'd support me through the worst moment of my life, I was met with absolutely zero reaction. Instead of comfort, they gave me some patronizing speech about how marriages are complicated and how I had pushed Jake away. They even suggested that Lucy was doing him a favor by showing him real love. My own family acted like I was the one who had messed up, like I'd somehow driven Jake into my sister's arms. In the days that followed, things only got worse. Jake's parents, whom I'd grown close to over the years, took his side without question. They were completely charmed by Lucy, treating her like the perfect addition to the family. I tried reaching out a few more times, but eventually, I got the message loud and clear. I was completely alone. Both families stood firmly behind Jake and Lucy. I was disposable to them, easily replaced by someone they thought was better suited for the role of wife and daughter-in-law. The divorce process was quick and brutally cold. I couldn't bear to keep anything that reminded me of Jake or the life we'd shared, so I left most of it behind. I moved into a tiny apartment, trying to figure out how to rebuild my life with no support. I lost nearly everyone in my social circle because, Thanks to my family's influence and connections, Jake and Lucy managed to paint me as the bitter, unstable one, and Lucy as the one who saved Jake from me. But somehow I got through it. I threw myself into work and slowly started meeting new people. People who didn't know about the mess that had become my life. I found new friends, a couple of neighbors who were kind, and over time I began to rebuild. I'd always thought I needed my family to feel whole, but I learned that I could be okay on my own. I found a kind of strength and independence I didn't know I had, and even though it was incredibly hard, I was proud of myself for getting through it. Just as I was starting to find peace, things took a wild turn. Out of nowhere, my phone started blowing up with calls and messages from my parents, from Jake's family. At first, I ignored them, thinking it was some kind of sick joke or just someone checking in because they felt guilty. But the calls kept coming, so I finally listened to one of the voicemails. What I heard left me absolutely floored. Lucy had left Jake. She'd apparently met someone else, another man who had caught her eye, and walked out on Jake without so much as a goodbye. And now, with Jake left heartbroken, both of our families were scrambling to put the pieces back together. And who did they think should fill in the spot Lucy had left? Me, of course. I was the rightful wife, they said. They actually thought I should go back to Jake and take my place, as if I was some kind of backup plan waiting in the wings. The messages were full of emotional manipulation disguised as concern. At first, they were begging me to come back and forgive them, but then their texts started sounding insane. They kept saying it was my duty as a woman to give Jake a second chance, that forgiveness would show how strong I was. My mom even said it was a chance to prove my worth as a daughter, as if I hadn't already spent years bending over backward for this family that tossed me aside. Jake's family chimed in too, saying that he was lost without me and that I should come back to keep the family together. It was as if my own pain, my own betrayal didn't matter. All they cared about was keeping up appearances, as though I should somehow just forget that they'd all abandoned me. I've been so angry because of this. After everything I'd gone through, losing my family, my husband, my social circle, these people thought they could just call me back as if I owed them something, as if I hadn't been discarded and replaced like an old piece of furniture. And the worst part was they acted like I should be grateful for the chance to come back. For a while, I debated whether I should confront them. Part of me wanted to scream at them, to let them know how deeply they'd hurt me and how absurd their request was. But another part of me knew that they wouldn't understand. They never saw me as a person with feelings, just as someone who could fulfill a role they needed. Confronting them wouldn't change anything. They'd twist it around somehow, make it about them, or tell me I was being dramatic. So I've been ignoring the calls, trying to find some peace in the life I've built for myself. But they have been bothering me this whole time. Every few days I'll get another voicemail, another text message, and it drags me back to that place of anger and hurt. They don't see me as a person with my own life and pain. They only see me as a convenience, someone who can patch up their mess. It's been exhausting, and I'm so tired of feeling like I'm the only one who sees how messed up this all is. Honestly, I know I'm not wrong for refusing to go back, but part of me wonders if there's something I'm missing. Should I confront them and try to make them see the damage they've caused? Or should I just block them all and let them deal with the mess they made? I know I've come a long way, but this whole thing has brought up so many old wounds that I thought I'd healed. So, Reddit, what am I supposed to do here? Should I even bother trying to explain to them how much they've hurt me? Or would it just be a waste of time? Update 1. Hi guys, I wish I could say things have gotten better, but honestly, the situation has only gone from bad to worse. Ever since I posted, my inbox has been flooded with more messages and calls from my family and Jake's family, and it's been a nightmare trying to keep up with all of it. My phone buzzes with notifications all day, to the point that I'm starting to dread even looking at it. I've tried blocking numbers, but somehow they keep finding ways to reach me, whether it's through new numbers or emails. It's like they're determined to wear me down. But what really took me by surprise was a call from Jake. I usually don't pick up calls if I don't recognize the number, but this time I did. I thought it might be work-related or maybe a friend, but the minute I heard his voice, my stomach dropped. It was Jake, and he immediately started in on what sounded like a pre-planned speech. He began by saying he was deeply sorry and that he realized he'd made some terrible mistakes. I could hardly believe the audacity of it all. He talked as if he had just forgotten to pick up milk on his way home, not destroyed our marriage by sleeping with my own sister. He kept going, saying we owed it to each other to work through this and that we had years of history together that shouldn't just be thrown away. Hearing him say that after everything he'd done was like a punch in the gut. The nerve to bring up our 8-year marriage as though it were something I was obligated to cherish. He said we both owed each other this chance to reconcile, to pick up the pieces and see if we could find a way back to each other. I almost laughed out loud at the ridiculousness of it. It was as if he thought a few apologies could somehow erase the betrayal, the loneliness, and the utter devastation he'd caused me. He went on talking about how much he missed the stability we had and how he realized that now that Lucy was gone, he truly wanted to settle down. The whole time he kept using words like we and our life and our history, as if he had any right to talk about us anymore. I just sat there completely stunned and barely managed to say anything because every word he spoke was just making me angrier and angrier. When I finally interrupted him and asked, "Why now? Why do you care now that she's gone?" He gave me some pathetic excuse about realizing what he'd lost and how he thought I'd be strong enough to move past it and take him back. Strong enough, as if strength had anything to do with putting up with his betrayal. After I hung up on him, the messages from my parents started pouring in even more relentlessly. They actually had the nerve to say that now that I had Jake begging for forgiveness, it was proof that he was sorry and that I should see this as some kind of victory or a sign that I should go back to him. My mom even said, "Isn't it enough that he's asking for a second chance?" It made my blood boil. They were talking as if Jake's pathetic attempt at reconciliation was something I should be grateful for, something that should make me feel validated or worthy. They seemed completely blind to the fact that I was the one who had been wronged, that I was the one who had been tossed aside like nothing. I kept wondering, how could anything be enough? How could a few words erase everything he'd done? Did they really expect me to just jump back into his arms and pretend that none of it had happened? Out of sheer frustration, I ended up calling Lucy. I had no idea what I was even going to say to her. I just needed to get it out. She didn't pick up, so I left a voicemail telling her that this entire mess was her doing and that she should be the one dealing with it. I reminded her that she had broken apart my marriage and my life and that it was up to her to explain herself to our parents and to take responsibility. I was so furious that I ended up sending her an email too, just so she couldn't ignore me. I laid it all out point by point, reminding her of every betrayal, every instance where she could have chosen to stop what she was doing but didn't. I was angry and hurt, and I didn't hold back. Of course, Lucy never responded. Typical. She'd caused this chaos, torn apart 2 families, and walked away without a second thought. And now she was off with some new man, probably not even thinking about the destruction she'd left in her wake. She'd left me to deal with the fallout while she got to walk away scot-free. And here I was, fielding calls and emails from family members who still somehow believed that I was the one who could fix it all. It's like they couldn't grasp the idea that I wasn't some disposable piece they could just pick up and drop whenever they felt like it. One particularly awful call came from my aunt, who had always been one of the few people I trusted in my family. She was practically begging me to see reason, and told me that people make mistakes, and that real forgiveness means giving people another chance. She told me that as a woman, it was my duty to be forgiving, to show grace in the face of hardship. I felt so betrayed, even by her. It was like she was saying that my pain, my heartache, didn't matter as much as maintaining some false sense of harmony. I was so shaken up that I couldn't even respond. I just hung up and cried. I wish I could just cut them all off. But it's so hard. Despite everything, a part of me still feels tied to them, still craves their acceptance or approval. I know it's not healthy, and I know they've shown me who they are, but I can't deny that it hurts. It's like a part of me is still that little girl who just wants her parents to love her unconditionally, even though I know now that they never truly will. And that realization is almost as painful as the betrayal itself. So here I am, feeling lost all over again. I thought I'd moved past this, that I'd managed to put the pieces of my life back together, but they keep dragging me back. Part of me wants to confront them, to tell them all exactly what I think of their so-called family values. But another part of me wonders if it's even worth the energy. They've shown me who they are, And I know deep down that no amount of explaining will make them see me for who I am or respect my boundaries. But it's hard to walk away completely when they keep pulling me back. Right now, I'm exhausted, mentally and emotionally. I feel like they're trying to erase everything I've worked for, every bit of peace I fought to find. I know I shouldn't let them get to me, but it's hard. It's so hard not to feel like the one who's somehow in the wrong, even though I know logically that I'm not. Update 2. It's been a few weeks since I last tried to wrap my head around everything, and honestly, nothing has settled down. If anything, it feels like someone hit the gas pedal on the drama, and I'm just trying to hold on. The calls, texts, and emails from my family and Jake's got so bad that I finally decided to cut them all off. I blocked their numbers, emails, and even their social media accounts. It wasn't an easy decision. I needed some kind of boundary, any boundary, because my head was spinning. For a few days, I actually felt like I'd won a small battle. My phone wasn't lighting up every 5 minutes with another attempt to guilt-trip me, and for the first time in months, I could just exist without their noise in the background. But of course, that peace didn't last long. Nothing about this situation seems to let me breathe for long. A few days after blocking everyone, I came home from work, tired and just wanting to crash. And there she was, my mom, just standing outside my apartment like it was the most normal thing in the world. My stomach dropped. I had never told her where I moved after the divorce, so the fact that she somehow tracked me down felt like a huge violation of my privacy. For a second, I thought about pretending I hadn't seen her and just turning around, but I knew that would only delay the inevitable. If I didn't face her now, she'd just keep coming back until I did. The whole thing was so classic mom, like a masterclass in emotional manipulation. She started talking about how the family was falling apart, that Jake was miserable, and that Lucy's absence was a wound no one knew how to deal with. She kept saying how family is everything, as if that meant I had some kind of obligation to fix everything just because we were related. She went on about how it was my duty to put the past behind us because that's what families are supposed to do. She even said Christmas was coming up and it would be the perfect opportunity to all get together and make things right. I couldn't believe the nerve of it all. This was the same woman who stood by while my husband and sister destroyed my life, and now she was asking me to be the one to patch things up. I felt like my head was going to explode. It was so frustrating, but it was also exhausting. I just stood there trying my best to keep my composure while she went on and on about forgiveness and moving forward. By the time she finally left, I felt like I'd been wrung out like an old rag. It was such a painful reminder of where I stood in my family's priorities. Definitely nowhere near the top. That wasn't even the worst of it. Not long after that little ambush, I got an email from Jake. I hadn't heard from him in a while, so when I saw his name pop up in my inbox, it felt like a slap in the face. His message was short, but it was calculated. He said he understood why I was upset and hoped we could have a conversation to clear the air. Oh, and just to make it worse, he attached a picture of us from our wedding day. That picture used to make me smile, but now it made my stomach turn. I deleted the email without even thinking twice. There was no way I was going to let him back into my head like that, no matter how sorry he claimed to be. And then, just when I thought I'd seen it all, Lucy reached out. Her email came out of nowhere with the subject line, "I'm sorry." For half a second, I thought she's finally going to own up to what she did. But no, her so-called apology was just a pile of excuses. She wrote about how she never meant to hurt me, how her relationship with Jake just happened because they were in love, as if that somehow made it okay. And if that wasn't bad enough, she actually had the audacity to say she hoped Jake and I could get back together. She said she was rooting for us to find happiness again, as if her blessing meant a damn thing to me anymore. I was so angry I could barely see straight. How do you even respond to something like that? Spoiler, you don't. I deleted her email just like I deleted Jake's. There was no point in engaging with someone who was so completely oblivious to the damage they had caused. It felt like they were trying to rewrite history, like nothing had really happened, like their actions had no consequences. But I wasn't about to let them gaslight me like that. These past few weeks have been some of the hardest of my life. The betrayal, the pressure to forgive, the constant manipulation. It's all taken a huge toll on me. Therapy has helped, but sometimes progress feels painfully slow. It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when everything around you seems to keep pulling you backward. But I'm trying. If nothing else, this whole mess has taught me how important it is to put myself first, even when everything else is screaming at me to do the opposite. With the holidays coming up, I know things are going to be tough. The whole family togetherness thing feels like it's going to be shoved in my face at every turn. But for the first time, I'm not going to let that dictate my decisions. I've spent too long trying to keep the peace, trying to make everyone else happy at the expense of my own well-being. It's time for me to take control and make choices that are good for me, even if that means upsetting a few people along the way. It's not easy, though. There are still days when the guilt creeps in. I think about all the messages I've ignored, all the people I've cut off, and wonder if I'm doing the right thing. But then I remind myself of everything that happened, everything they did, and I know that this is what I need. I'm learning that I don't owe anyone my peace, my happiness, or my mental health. I'm learning that it's okay to walk away from people who don't respect my boundaries, no matter who they are. The road ahead is still uncertain, and I know there will be more challenges, especially with the holidays looming, but I'm not going to let the past dictate my future. Update 3. Hi everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone here for your kind words, advice, and support. Reading through the stories of people who've gone through similar situations has been such an eye-opener. It's comforting to know that I'm not alone in dealing with something as messy and painful as this. It's like finding a safe space I didn't expect. I never thought I'd find a community where I could feel so heard. But here we are, and it honestly means a lot to me. I honestly didn't think things could get any worse, but I've learned that life's pretty good at surprising you, and not always in a good way. Since my last update, things have taken another turn. It feels like every single person involved has decided that they're not going to back down. Instead of backing off and letting me heal, they've just doubled down on their efforts to guilt trip, manipulate, and pressure me into going back to a situation I've worked so hard to escape. It's like the chaos is never ending, and I'm constantly fighting to keep my peace intact. The first major red flag was a letter I got in the mail from Jake's parents about a week ago. At first, I thought maybe this was an attempt at reconciliation, or at least an apology for their part in all of this. But no, the letter was nothing but accusations. They went on about how selfish and immature I was for not forgiving Jake and for not putting the family back together. According to them, my refusal to engage was somehow making everything worse for everyone else, like somehow it was my responsibility to fix a mess that they all contributed to. But the real kicker was at the end of the letter, when they threatened to expose me to our mutual friends. They said if I didn't do the right thing and talk to Jake, they'd ruin my reputation and paint me as the villain. Seriously, what exactly were they going to expose? That I set boundaries? That I refused to forgive a man who cheated on me with my sister? It was infuriating, to say the least, and honestly, it just made it crystal clear. I could not trust these people. I had to protect myself from them, no matter what. Then Jake decided to take it to the next level. I was at work one day, minding my own business, when one of my coworkers came to tell me that someone was waiting for me in the lobby. At first, I thought it was just a delivery or maybe a friend stopping by unexpectedly. But no, when I walked out, there he was, Jake, standing there like some rom-com protagonist, holding a bouquet of flowers. My stomach sank. It was the last thing I needed, and it felt like the entire world had stopped. Why did he think this was okay? It wasn't even just the flowers. It was the fact that he was at my workplace, my safe space. After I told him again and again that I didn't want him in my life, he completely disregarded the boundaries I had set, acting like a bouquet could somehow fix everything he destroyed. And it wasn't just awkward for me. It was embarrassing. My coworkers were watching, and I could feel their eyes on me, making this whole ridiculous scene worse. Jake, of course, didn't seem to care. He kept blabbering on about how sorry he was and how much he missed me, as though all that mattered was his feelings. He said we were meant to be together, as if me standing there, hurt in pieces, didn't prove the opposite. It felt like he was rewriting the story in his favor, playing the part of the heartbroken hero, when really he was the one who caused all of this. It was selfish, and honestly, it felt like he was trying to gaslight me into feeling bad for him instead of taking responsibility for his actions. I was so angry, but I had to stay calm. I told him he needed to leave immediately, that this wasn't the place for his apology. He ignored me, so I walked back to my office, shaking with frustration. I locked myself inside, trying to regain my composure. I called security to remove him. I didn't want to escalate things, but at that point, it was clear I had no other choice. I had to protect myself again. Later that night, I made a decision I never thought I would have to make. I filed for a restraining order against Jake. The idea of doing this, of having to get legal protection from someone I once loved, was heartbreaking. But I knew it was the only way to keep him out of my life for good. I couldn't just sit around and let him keep showing up uninvited, invading my space and making me feel powerless. I had to take control. And my family, they haven't stopped either. Even though I've gone no contact with them, they found new ways to try and reach me. One of my cousins, someone I haven't spoken to in years, sent me this long message about forgiveness and how everyone missed me. Of course, she didn't mention the fact that none of them cared about me when I was in the middle of dealing with the betrayal. Another distant aunt chimed in with an email about how I needed to be the bigger person and let go of my anger. It's crazy to me that these people who weren't even involved in the betrayal feel like they have the right to tell me how to heal. They have no idea what I've been through. But the hardest part, the part that's been the most painful, is my mom. Despite everything, despite our last confrontation where I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with this mess, she's still trying to guilt me into coming back. A few days ago, she left me a voicemail saying I was tearing the family apart by refusing to forgive Jake and Lucy. She didn't even acknowledge the pain they caused me. All she cared about was how my actions were affecting them. It's hard not to feel drained by all of this. Every time I think I'm getting some distance from the chaos, someone finds a new way to drag me back in. But through all of it, I've come to realize something important. I deserve better. I deserve better than Jake, better than the toxic dynamics of my family, and better than the life they tried to force me into. I've moved into a new apartment that they don't know about. I've locked down my privacy even more. New phone number, tighter security on my accounts. It's sad that I've had to go to these lengths, but it's necessary for my peace of mind. Therapy has been my lifeline. My therapist has helped me understand that it's okay to protect myself, that cutting off toxic people isn't just acceptable, it's essential. Progress is slow, and some days it feels like I'm barely hanging on. But for the first time in a long time, I'm putting myself first. And that's something I've never done before. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My entire family blocked me off after my wife cheated on me with my cousin and had a baby. My whole family kept it a secret while I struggled to become successful. Now they want me back. So, there's a lot of context here. Kindly bear with me as I explain this whole situation. Right now, I'm a 44-year-old male and have been married for 10 years to my wife, 41F, and we've been together for 13 years. We also have an 8-year-old son, and we are quite happy with our lives. However, this is not my first marriage. I got married at 22, but unfortunately, that marriage ended in divorce within 3 years for reasons that I'm still not aware of. My ex-wife, let's call her Amy, had been with me since we were in middle school. We were pretty much childhood sweethearts, and as soon as we graduated college and had decent jobs, we decided to get married. Things were fine for the first couple of years, but after that, for some reason, stuff started to get weird between us. I tried my very best to keep the spark alive, but after that point, I started to feel like she was not interested at all. I did everything in my power to get her back, but a couple of weeks before our 3rd marriage anniversary, she decided to hand me divorce papers and told me that she was done. I wanted to work on our marriage. I just wanted one reason why we had to give up after being together for so long. But she couldn't give me any reasons apart from the fact that she was just not in love with me anymore. I was really upset, but I couldn't do anything about it. So, I decided to go through with it since I had no other option, and I did not want to make her even more unhappy by forcing her to stay with me and dragging out the divorce. We didn't have a lot of joint assets together, so it was a relatively straightforward process. And after that, I did not see her again. I heard from a couple of friends that after the divorce was finalized, she moved cities and cut everybody off. This is normal, but what was really strange was that even my family stopped speaking to me around the time of the divorce. They should have been supportive of me when I was going through something so difficult, but instead, they started distancing themselves from me. After the divorce was finalized, I tried really hard to keep in touch with them, but I realized that I had been blocked everywhere. I even tried to go visit them a couple of times, but neither my parents ever opened the door to me, nor did my sister. It was all very strange, and I was already going through a tough time, so it really hit me hard. For a couple of years after the divorce, I couldn't even bring myself to do anything and ended up quitting my job and sitting at home unemployed for a few months. But I'm incredibly lucky that even in such difficult times, I had friends by my side who decided to motivate me to do better and try to move on. My family was never there for me after the divorce, so my friends took care of me, and eventually, I decided to start my own restaurant. It had always been my dream, but I had decided to wait to save up enough money since I also had to think about Amy while we were married. However, now that we had gotten divorced, I decided that I would go through with it on my own, and I also decided to use the name that my parents had suggested for the restaurant. With the help of my friends, I reached out to a couple of investors, got them on board, started building a business model, and within a few years, I started my first restaurant. It took me almost 4 years to get back on my feet after the divorce, and 2 years after that, I met my wife. We met through friends at a party, and she told me that she loved my restaurant, so that's how we got to talking. After 3 years of dating, I decided to finally give love another chance and asked her to marry me. And now, 10 years later, here we are with our son. It's not just my personal life that has improved over the past couple of years, but also my professional life since I have done reasonably well in my career. It all started with a restaurant, but then we slowly began to expand thanks to the success of the first restaurant. Currently, I am the CEO of my own hospitality group, and we own a semi-popular chain of restaurants and hotels which we are currently planning to expand even more so we become more popular outside of the state as well. It has been an uphill battle, but I have worked really hard to get where I am. That's why when I was asked to sit for an interview recently, I thought that it was a sign that I had really made it. So I agreed, but I honestly had no idea that it would lead to such a storm in my life. My family decided to come back and reach out to me after having watched that interview on the news. The channel that had picked it up was a moderately popular one, so I hadn't really expected my family to have watched it, and even if I had, I did not expect them to show up at my office. It's not really private information where my workplace is, so it must have been quite easy for them to find me. But anyway, it was still quite inappropriate for them to show up at my workplace and demand to see me during work hours. Unfortunately, 3 days back, that's exactly what they did, and it was quite weird for me to see them after so long. When they showed up, I was working, but the receptionist told me that my family was waiting outside. At first, I thought that it was my wife and my son that she was talking about, which would have been weird because my wife was at work and my son was at school. But then she clarified and told me that it was my parents and sister who were there to see me. It was then that I started finding it difficult to process what was going on. And so I told the receptionist that I would see them later, but for now they would have to be told to leave. But of course, they did not leave and started throwing a tantrum. So I had to intervene because I did not want security to throw them out of the building before I got a chance to speak to them and find out what on earth was happening. So I went to see them in the lobby, and as soon as they saw me, they started acting like nothing had changed since the last time that I saw them, which was almost 20 years ago. They literally started fawning over me instantly, telling me how great it was that I had become successful enough to make it to the news and how inspiring my story was. It felt very weird to hear them say that because since they were my family, they actually should have been part of that story. And I kept trying to brush it off by telling them that I had to go back to work. But then they started talking about how they had seen my family as well. There was a part in my interview where I talked about my wife and son and how great they had been throughout my journey, and the channel had put together a couple of our family photos, so I'm guessing that's what they were referring to. And they started telling me that they really wanted to meet my wife and their grandson as soon as possible because they had spent a really long time away from all of us. At that point, they started telling me that I had not put in enough of an effort to get in touch with them after the divorce and that I should have tried harder. Then I realized that I might finally be able to find out what exactly had gone back then, so I decided to let them talk instead of telling them to leave, and even took a seat in the lobby with them so I could get to the bottom of what had happened those years ago just so that I would get some closure. And while they were talking, I discovered the real reason that Amy had decided to get a divorce from me and why exactly my family had abandoned me after that. You guys might have figured it out by now. But yeah, Amy had been cheating on me, and I had never had a clue because my parents had been helping her cover it up all along. Don't judge them too quickly though, since they had their reasons, at least according to them. These were valid reasons to help their daughter-in-law cheat on their son. Apparently, the person that Amy was having an affair with was my cousin, my dad's older brother's son. When they finally told me about that, everything seemed to fall into place almost immediately. Why they had helped her out, why I hadn't been invited to any family events in the past 20 years, why I'd been completely cast aside for no fault of my own. My cousin, let's call him Carl, was a spoiled, entitled brat, and I had always hated him. But unfortunately, because his mother had passed away when he was just 6 months old, his dad and the rest of the family seemed to think that he should get a free pass for everything that he did. So, throughout his entire life, nobody had told him how to behave, and he always got away with everything. It did not help that my uncle was my dad's boss since he had started the family business and my dad had joined him later. And after our marriage, since Carl had decided that he wanted to be with Amy, and she had also wanted the same thing, my family had no other choice but to help them out because they couldn't risk my uncle's anger, of course. But putting the relationship with me at risk was something easily doable, and so that's what they did. They told me that after the divorce, my uncle made it very clear that he didn't want anybody from the family to have any contact with me at all, including my parents and sister. Apparently, they had tried to protest, but then Amy had announced that she was pregnant with my kid, and if they ever wanted to have any contact with their grandkid, they would have to cut me off. By the way, I was never notified of the fact that Amy was pregnant when she had filed for a divorce, and at another time she hadn't been showing either, so I couldn't have guessed. Neither had she been staying with me since she had moved out long before the divorce was finalized. So I had no idea that I had become a father long before my son was born. And apparently, I have a daughter who is almost 20 now but has never even known me and thinks that Carl is her real father. Anyway, this was whatever my parents told me about what had really happened all those years ago, and I could hardly begin to process any of that at that moment because I felt like I was being told a story and I had to pinch myself to actually realize that this was my reality. My family had basically just cut me off in favor of having a relationship with their grandchild and job security, or so they believed. But in my opinion, they had cut me off because they were cowards and nothing else. They could have easily come to me with the truth and let me deal with the situation, but they chose to be afraid of my dad's brother, as if he could actually do any harm to them other than firing my father from the business. And even then, my dad could have easily retaliated by filing a lawsuit. As for never telling me about Amy's pregnancy and the fact that I have a daughter, I literally cannot think of any excuse for that. For 20 whole years, they had sat on this and never spoken up until they found out that I was doing well in life. And now, all of a sudden, they were feeling really sorry about everything and wanted to make it up to me. Unfortunately for them, I could see through their act, and as soon as they were done telling me everything, I told them that I needed them to leave because whatever they had just said to me, I couldn't find it in me to forgive them at the moment. I tried to be civil to them because after all, we were sitting in the lobby of my workplace and I did not want to throw a tantrum. But of course, I couldn't count on them to behave the same way, and when I said that I wanted them to leave, they immediately started whining about it and told me that I needed to think about where they were coming from and how difficult the situation had been for them as well. I told them that I knew for a fact that they had only decided to reach out to me now simply because I was successful and they wanted a piece of that, but they started denying it vehemently. My sister even went to the extent of saying that I owed my success to them in the first place. By that, she obviously meant that I had used the name that they had suggested for my restaurant all those years ago when it was still a dream that I had. I thought it was really bold of her to make a claim like that, given the fact that neither had had any of their support throughout all of these years and had done everything on my own with help from my friends. But not them. Just having suggested a name did not make them worthy enough to credit my success to themselves, and it was such a ridiculous idea that I ended up laughing at her. And I told her that if she and her parents did not leave that very instant, I would have them thrown out of the building. So they immediately started arguing with me, telling me that they were not going anywhere until we had cleared the air between us. But honestly, I was just not interested, so I did exactly what I had told them I would do. I had them thrown out of the building by security. They were naturally very upset while they were being thrown out and kept trying to tell me that they had no choice and stuff, but I don't buy that. They did have a choice. They just made the wrong one, and now they're going to have to face the consequences for it. It hasn't been difficult for them to live for the past 20 years without having seen me and my family. I'm sure they can manage it in the future as well. Anyway, it has been 3 days since then, and they haven't stopped trying to contact me ever since. They have been texting me on social media, sending me emails at my work address, and have even been showing up at my office but haven't had the guts to come back inside yet. There has been a definite change in their attitude because now all they are doing is trying to apologize to me. All their messages are just full of apologies, and even when I see them standing outside my workplace, they look really upset and they wait for me to stop for them, but I just drive by and ignore them. It has gotten to a point where I almost feel bad for them, to be honest. I have spoken to my wife about this because regardless of what I decide to do about my family, we still have to think about my daughter, who I didn't even know existed until a couple of days back. We have been going back and forth on that since neither of us really knows if we should trace her and try to reach out to her yet or not. And then on top of that, we also have a family to deal with because I don't think they're going to go anywhere until they get another chance to speak to me. My wife thinks that just for the sake of at least attempting to clear things out, maybe I should just speak to them, invite them home, and let us all talk it out so at least we can get all the toxicity out of the way because this is not good for my emotional health. But I personally have no interest in doing anything like that. I just want to keep ignoring them until they go away on their own, mostly because I don't have the capacity to deal with them right now, especially after everything that I have found out and whatever I'm dealing with at the moment. So we are having a lot of trouble trying to figure out what to do and how to deal with this. And I want to ask if I'm wrong for not wanting to give my parents a chance to speak to me after 20 years of no contact. Update 1. So it has been a week and 3 days since I posted here, and my wife and I have decided that we are going to continue to ignore my family. Thankfully, for the past couple of days, they haven't been showing up at my workplace, probably because they got tired of it or maybe they got intimidated by the security. But for whatever reason, they haven't been showing up, and I'm very relieved. Once they stopped showing up, I found it much easier to stop thinking about them, so I guess it was just their faces that were making me feel bad about whatever I was doing. However, now I don't feel guilty about ignoring their messages anymore. They can keep apologizing all they want, but it's not going to change anything because the fact of the matter is that they have failed me as a family, and no amount of apologizing is ever going to make that right again. They have still continued to send messages to me from various accounts and email addresses, and at this point, I'm not even bothering to block them anymore because what's the point? They're just going to create new ones to try and apologize to me, and I'm going to just keep ignoring all of it anyway. Let's see how long they can keep this up and how sorry they are about everything. Moving on to the other problem that we were dealing with, my wife and I had no idea how to deal with the situation with my daughter. We do have a name since my parents had told me her full name and where she goes to college while we were talking the other day, so we have managed to trace her. My assistant managed to find her social media accounts for me, but so far I haven't done anything. I don't even know if it's appropriate for me to do anything, and neither do I have any idea how I'm supposed to tell her that I'm her actual biological father. She is not a minor, so obviously I can't just show up at Amy's house demanding custody and stuff. And honestly, I would much rather not have her involved in this at all because after what I found out about her, I have lost all respect for that woman and my entire family. They are all just a bunch of spineless cowards, and I want nothing to do with them. But I can't say the same thing for my daughter because no matter who she has been raised by, she is still my flesh and blood. Anyway, if anybody has any advice on how to go ahead and talk to her about this or whether I should even be doing that or not, please let me know. Also, thank you to everybody who responded to my original post and commented on it. It was really helpful, and I'm hoping that you guys can help me out once again here now. Update 2. Hey, so after going through the comments on my update from 3 days back, my wife and I just decided to go for it. There was no point in waiting for the right time or the right opportunity to text my daughter. We just had to rip off the Band-Aid and be done with it. And because she lives in a different state and we don't think that it would be the right thing to do to fly out to her, we decided to send her a message first and see how that goes. So we reached out to her on Instagram, explained everything to her as nicely as we could, and now we are waiting for a response from her. I'm sure it's going to be really complicated to come to terms with it. It is complicated for me as well, and I don't even understand how my wife has managed to be so supportive, knowing that I'm reaching out to the long-lost daughter whom I had with my ex-wife. I'm sure it's a lot of complicated emotions for all of us, but we are trying our best, and I'm really hoping that my daughter reaches back out to me because I would really love to have a relationship with her. Now coming to my parents and what they are up to. They haven't shown up at my workplace in a really long time, and yesterday they sent me a really long email saying that they were really sorry about everything but they genuinely want to repair their relationship with me and they just need one chance from me. They told me that they wouldn't be reaching out to me again, but they're gonna wait for me to reach out to them instead. Honestly, I'm kind of relieved that they took the hint and realized that I really don't want to speak to them right now. I already have a lot on my plate to be dealing with at the moment. The last thing that I need is for them to create more drama. Now I'm just hoping that they stick to what they said and do not reach out to me again. If I feel ready or if I want to speak to them at any point, I will do so myself. However, right now it seems very unlikely that it's going to happen anytime soon because now that I know the real reason that they hadn't spoken to me in 20 whole years, the situation has become much worse with them. I feel betrayed and hurt, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. At least the one good thing that came out of this was that I found out about my daughter, and now I really hope that she decides to give our relationship a chance. I haven't told my son about this yet, just in case she doesn't want to talk to us. I wouldn't want to give him false hope, but if things go well, he might find a sister in her, and I might be able to get to know the daughter that I never knew I had. I just have a lot of emotions right now, and I'm really trying hard to keep it together. Update 3. Hi, so almost 2 weeks ago, I reached out to my daughter on social media and I sent her a message telling her everything about who I was and how she was related to me. After that, for 2 weeks, I waited for her to respond, and today I finally got a text back. She didn't say much, just told me that she had spoken to her mother about me after my message and had finally found out that I was her biological father. Obviously, this had come as a shock to her because for the past 20 years, she had believed that Carl was her biological father and had no idea that she wasn't his daughter. She had also found out the real story behind how her mother and I ended up like this and told me that she would like to meet me and my family. So we are all flying out to see her this weekend since she's not speaking to her family right now, so she doesn't have the funds to come see us. She didn't get into the details, but when she confronted Amy about the message that she had received, at first Amy tried to deny it, but then she was forced to tell her the truth. I haven't heard from Amy yet, and I really hope that she doesn't contact me because I don't want to speak to her. However, my family did break their promise immediately and started trying to talk to me as soon as they found out that I had reached out to my daughter. Apparently, my uncle was furious that I had found out about it, and naturally so because they had spent 20 years trying to make sure that I never found out so I wouldn't cause any trouble in their life. But now I finally knew, and of course my uncle was holding my parents responsible for all of this. My dad doesn't even work for him anymore. He has his own independent business, but for some reason, he is still terrified of his older brother and has been begging me to tell my uncle or Carl or somebody that they did not have anything to do with this and that I found out on my own somehow. Even if I did do that, I think it's highly unlikely that anybody would believe it because they are the only people likely to do something like this since I haven't ever been close to most of my family and they haven't bothered to speak to me in the past 20 years. It's funny how desperate they are acting right now just so that they don't lose the relationship that they have with my uncle. But honestly, I don't really care. It was because of them that I did not have a relationship with my daughter for 20 years of our lives, so I think this is really the least that I can do for them. Update 4. Hello everyone. So today my family and I finally met my daughter. It was weird at first, and then it was really emotional, but mostly it was just beautiful. She seems to be a really kind and good human being, which is weird because she was raised by two of the cruelest and most horrible people I know. But I guess they did a good job raising her, or maybe it's just her own innate nature, but whatever it was, she seems to be a really intelligent and mature girl. We had a long chat about how things were going with Amy and her father, and she told me that they were naturally not on board with her meeting us, but she didn't care because after she found out the truth, she simply didn't care what her parents thought. They did not have any kids after her. She is their only child, so she doesn't think that she's going to abandon them forever, but she's definitely going to distance herself from them for a while and try to process all of this. She told me that she needs some time to start building a relationship with me as well. She just is in a very weird place mentally right now, and I totally understand. But overall, we had a really nice time, and she really seemed to get along with my wife and her half-brother as well. We had dinner together, and we found out that my parents, her grandparents, had been in touch with her all along, and she always found it weird how emotional they were about her, considering the fact that they were not her actual grandparents but her grandfather's brother's family. But now it all makes sense why they were so attached to her. However, after everything that she has found out, she sees all of them in a different light, and so do I. So I can completely understand how she feels. Well, maybe not completely, because I'm a lot older than her and she's just 20, so she's probably finding it a lot more difficult to deal with because she has been lied to her entire life by the people she considered to be the closest to her. But anyway, both of us are going to have to work on this, and hopefully the future will be better. I know it has to be, because we're going to try and make it the best. All I'm really happy about is that the meeting went well and my family seems to be really content after all of this, and so am I. I'm quite content with the situation as well. Regardless of what my family has done or what Amy and Carl have done, what matters is that at least now, after so many years, we have a chance at making things right, and I'm going to make the most of that chance. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My mother hated having a daughter so much that she wanted to kick me out of her happy family after getting a stepson. She even tampered with my food and smirked as I ate it. My mother has never been a girl's girl, if you know what I mean. My mother never hid her disappointment about giving birth to me. She would openly admit to everyone, even in my presence, that she had always wanted a baby boy. The fact that she ended up with a daughter seemed to her like some kind of unfortunate twist of fate. She would tell her friends how she was stuck now with me forever, which was incredibly painful to hear. It felt like a rejection of my very existence, an invalidation of who I was simply because of my gender. From a young age, I would also notice a stark difference in how my mother treated me compared to all my cousins. While they were often showered with praise and affection from her whenever we met with them, I always received a colder, more critical attitude from her. She also would scold me if I acted too girlish. According to her, I was banned from buying anything pink for myself since she felt it was too girly, and I needed to stop acting like other girls. I was also banned from wearing skirts or dresses. She dressed me like a boy for a very long time and would only allow me to play with toy cars and trucks. I was also not allowed to keep long hair, as she felt it was too much to take care of, and always made me cut my hair very short. Honestly, I just never understood her obsession with gender. Why did it matter so much whether I was a girl or a boy? Why couldn't she see beyond that and appreciate me for who I was? As a child, these thoughts swirled in my head, creating a storm of confusion and hurt. Her behavior planted seeds of self-doubt and insecurity in me. I began to question my worth and whether I could ever live up to her expectations. It was a heavy burden for a child to bear, knowing that in her eyes, I was a constant reminder of her unfulfilled desire for a son. I couldn't grasp why my mother, the person who was supposed to love and support me unconditionally, was so fixated on something I had no control over. As if this wasn't enough, she also had a particular disdain for other women in our lives, frequently indulging in harsh criticisms and gossip about them. If a female coworker of my mother ever got promoted, she would complain to my dad and me, insinuating that the woman must have slept her way to get the promotion. It was her default assumption, her go-to explanation for any woman's success in the workplace. The idea that a woman could achieve something through hard work and merit seemed foreign to her. It was as if, in her eyes, women could only advance by compromising their integrity. If a classmate of mine received more appreciation from a teacher, my mother would quickly jump to the conclusion that the child's mother must be having an affair with the teacher, hence the said child was getting extra brownie points. Not only was all of this weird for me to hear as a child, but this negative attitude of hers was a constant presence in my life, shaping much of my childhood and how I perceived myself and others. As you can imagine, my mother's comments made it difficult for me to form healthy relationships with other women. Her constant bashing of other women created an atmosphere where I felt it was almost wrong to admire or be close to any females in my life. The idea that women were always competing against each other, always out to undermine or deceive, was in the back of my mind constantly. If I ever befriended any women, my mother would constantly remind me about how it was better to befriend men and how men were always more helpful. This is why for a very long time I only had male friends at school, since I was afraid of befriending a female and getting backstabbed by her. As if all these things were not enough, when I was in high school, my dad confessed to my mother that he wanted a divorce. This was quite unexpected, as I always thought my parents had the perfect marriage. However, it turned out that he had been having an affair with one of his coworkers. The revelation was a bombshell, shaking the very foundations of our family. My mother, devastated and furious, packed her bags and took me with her to live in a motel. What followed next was a nasty divorce battle between the both of them. My mother's anger towards my father was intense and all-consuming. She would constantly use me as a pawn in her battle against him. I became a tool for her to one-up him, to inflict pain and assert her dominance. Whenever I expressed a desire to spend time with my dad during their separation, she would get furious at me. She would scream and yell, accusing me of choosing him over her, the man who had betrayed us. Her accusations were relentless. "He cheated on us," she would scream, her voice filled with hurt and betrayal. "You shouldn't even be in contact with him." The idea that I might want or need a relationship with my father was incomprehensible to her. In her eyes, maintaining any connection with him was a direct betrayal of her and all she had suffered. Whenever I attempted to tell her that I needed both of my parents and that I couldn't just cut my father out of my life, her response was filled with venom. She would accuse me of trying to backstab her, of being disloyal. "You should be ashamed of yourself. You're just like every other woman," she would say, her words dripping with contempt. It was a cruel and cutting remark, one that echoed her deep-seated issues with women and trust. I did try my best to understand her perspective, but I also missed my dad a lot. He was always a good father to me, regardless of his equation with my mother. Whenever my dad and I met, unlike my mother, he never uttered a word against her. When he discovered that my mother had told me about his affair, he immediately apologized and took full responsibility for his actions. He explained that he had been deeply unhappy in his marriage and that falling in love with his coworker had been unexpected. Despite this, he emphasized multiple times that cheating on my mother was a grave mistake. He assured me that when I grew up, he would be open to answering any questions I might have about what happened. Navigating my parents' divorce as a single child was one of the hardest challenges of my life. It forced me to grow up quickly, but it also taught me that my parents are just like any other human being and they tend to make mistakes. My dad has remained a constant presence in my life ever since the divorce, ensuring he fulfills his responsibilities. He has consistently paid child support to my mother, demonstrating his commitment to providing for me. Despite his separation from my mother, he also allowed my mother and me to continue living in our family home even though he moved out. The condition was that I would live with my mother in this house so as to ensure stability in my life. He did not want me and my mother to have to go through the process of moving all our things and moving to a completely new neighborhood. Primarily, I reside with my mother, but I get to spend every other weekend with my dad. This arrangement allows me to maintain a relationship with both parents. I have to admit that ever since the divorce, my mother has become worse towards me as a parent. I mean, I love her, but she is very fixated on getting married before my dad does. I believe her ego was deeply bruised by the fact that my dad cheated on her. After their separation was finalized, she began going out more frequently to bars and clubs, eager to meet new people and perhaps find a new partner quickly. This led to her meeting Dave just 3 months after the divorce. Dave is a DJ and a single father to his son Matthew. Dave and his ex-wife had Matthew when they were quite young, and after she left them, Dave took on the full responsibility of raising their son. Matthew is 3 years younger than me and seems pretty polite. Dave, too, comes across as a nice guy. However, the real issue began when I started noticing my mother's behavior around Matthew. As you know, my mother had always wanted a son, a dream that never came true for her. So, when Dave and Matthew entered our lives, it seemed she was quite excited at the prospect of potentially having Matthew as a son. She constantly went shopping with him, buying him new shoes or shirts, and she would proudly tell all her friends about how great Matthew was at school or how proud she was of him. At first, I thought maybe I was just being jealous and overreacting, but it became even more clear that something was amiss when even my dad started noticing the same thing as well. My mother would constantly call my dad to ask if I could spend more days with him because she wanted to go on road trips with her boyfriend and his son instead of staying with me at home. If Dave had a performance anywhere, my mother would tag along with him. I tried not to care so much about her changing behavior, as I was always happy to spend more time with my dad. One day, things came to a head when my mother came back home from one of her road trips and informed me that she and Dave got engaged. This was unexpected and too soon, since they had only been dating for a few months. I wanted to question her, but I knew if I said anything negative, she would take it as me not supporting her. So I just kept my mouth shut and told her instead how happy I was for her. My mother then informed me that she had decided Dave and Matthew would be moving in with us. I was taken aback by this announcement, especially since the house wasn't even hers to begin with. It belonged to my dad, who had allowed us to continue living there after the divorce. As expected, when Dad heard about her plans, he was furious. He told her in no uncertain terms that if she wanted Dave and Matthew to move in, then Dave would have to pay him rent every month. He wasn't going to let another person stay in his house for free. My mother didn't take this well. She argued with Dad, accusing him of being jealous and trying to sabotage her relationship because she was finally happy with someone. She was convinced that his refusal to let Dave move in without paying rent was a deliberate attempt to ruin things for her. But Dad was firm. He reminded her that the house belonged to him and that he had only allowed her to stay there because of me. He made it clear that if she thought he was being such a pain in the ass, then she would also have to start paying rent or move out. The whole situation escalated, but in the end, Dave stepped in and agreed to pay rent to my dad. Him and his son then moved into our house. At first, Dave moved into the master bedroom with my mother, while Matthew took over the guest bedroom. Everything seemed to settle into a new routine, and Matthew and I would play a lot of video games together. I was happy to finally have a stepbrother since I had been a single child for a very long time. But it wasn't long before Matthew began to complain about the bed in the guest room. His room had an old bed and understandably it affected his sleep. Dave promised him they would buy a new one soon. However, one afternoon, I came home to find that the bed from my room had been moved into Matthew's room, while the bed from the guest room had been placed in mine. I was taken aback and immediately asked my mother why this had happened. She casually dismissed it, saying that Matthew deserved a good bed to sleep in and that it wasn't a big deal. I was floored by her response and argued with her that Dave could have bought him a bed just as he promised. She shrugged and replied that I was older than Matthew, so I should learn to make sacrifices for the sake of her new family. After this incident, slowly, it became painfully clear to me that my mother was clearly favoring Matthew over me, treating him with a level of care and attention that she seemed to withhold from me. For instance, during dinner, he was allowed to take second plates without question. But if I reached for more, she would smack my hand and harshly tell me not to be a fat cow. The irony was that I wasn't even overweight. I was athletic, active, and had a healthy appetite to match. But she insisted that Matthew, being a growing boy, deserved the extra food more than I did. Then there was the time when my dad told me he had tickets to a baseball game and wanted to take me. I was thrilled and couldn't wait to go, but when I told my mother, she immediately insisted that I should let Matthew go in my place. Her reasoning: because he's a boy and would enjoy it more. Obviously, my dad refused to take Matthew to the baseball game in my place, and I went as originally planned. The game was great, and I was glad to spend that time with my dad. On multiple occasions, my mother would plan day trips with just Dave and Matthew, deliberately excluding me from their plans. If Matthew ever invited me to join, she would insist that the only three of them needed to bond as a family, and that I, being older, should sit this one out. It was as if she was creating a new family that didn't quite include me. The exclusion was hurtful, making me feel like an outsider in my own home, as though I was being slowly pushed to the margin of her new life with Dave and Matthew. When my 18th birthday was approaching this year, my dad informed my mother that he wanted to throw a big party for me to celebrate turning 18 and graduating high school. Since our family home was spacious enough and had a huge backyard, he planned to hire caterers and have everything set up here. My mother wouldn't have to lift a finger, as he was taking care of all the arrangements. However, as expected, my mother tried to push back. She argued that holding such a big event for me was unnecessary and that we could just have a family dinner at a restaurant. My dad argued that since I was his only child, he wanted to celebrate such a huge milestone in my life with the rest of our family and friends. Even though I was okay with my dad's idea, my mother wasn't ready to let it go so easily. She then argued that throwing such a big celebration for me would be a slap in the face to Dave, as he could never afford to do something similar for Matthew when he would eventually graduate. She claimed it was unfair to make Matthew feel left out by hosting an event that was all about me. Then she went on to suggest that we could perhaps celebrate Matthew during the party as well. This was supposed to be my special day, a milestone, and yet my mother was more concerned about how it might affect Matthew and Dave. It was as though she couldn't stand the thought of me having a moment that was purely about me without somehow bringing Matthew into it. My dad, however, had had enough of her arguments. He firmly reminded her that Matthew was none of his concern and that this party was for me, his daughter, who deserved to be celebrated. He made it clear that he was going to throw this party whether she liked it or not, and that if her new family didn't like it, then they were all uninvited from my party, and that was the end of the discussion. This immediately made my mother backtrack her statements, and she grudgingly agreed to let me celebrate. Next, when it came to planning the party, my mother continued to interfere with everything. She started dictating how things should be done, saying that since Dave preferred vegan meals, we needed to have more vegan options at my party. Now, this was going to be a complete waste of money since I knew no one else was vegan, but I did not want to fight with her, so I agreed. Next, I love eating fish and wanted to order a fish item, but my mother informed me that Matthew didn't like fish, so I shouldn't order any fish dishes. I tried to stay calm and told her firmly that this was my party and I wanted to order food that I liked. If she, Dave, and Matthew had an issue with anything I was going to be ordering, then they could adjust for one evening. My response set her off. She yelled at me, accusing me of disrespecting her family and calling me a spoiled brat. She went on to claim that my dad's money was getting to my head and that I needed to learn to care about her husband and her son as well. She shook her head, wagging a finger at my face, and told me, "I should teach you a lesson for acting so entitled." She then went on to insist that if I didn't consider what Dave and Matthew liked while planning this party, then she was going to ground me and take away my phone as my punishment. At that point, I saw red. I realized I was going to be turning 18 and had nothing to lose anymore. I was going to be moving out soon anyway, so I decided to finally let out all the years of suppressed anger. I shouted back at her, telling her that I had always considered Matthew and Dave's needs. But this was my party, my last hurrah before moving out, and I deserved the freedom to make my own choices. I told her that I had kept my mouth shut long enough, and if she took away my phone or grounded me for no reason, I would call CPS on her for mentally and emotionally torturing me all the time over the years. It was clearly a bluff, but I wanted her to think twice before mistreating me ever again. Her eyes widened in shock when she heard me say this. She knew a CPS investigation might affect her relationship with Dave and Matthew, who was still a minor. Then I went on to tell her that if she no longer saw me as her daughter, then I would be cutting off all contact with her when I went to college. I didn't want a mother anyway who never prioritized me, who always put others before me, and who made me feel like I was second best in my own home. It was a moment of raw, unfiltered honesty, and I made it clear that I was done with being pushed aside. This seemed to shake her up. She then started to insist that I was overreacting and that all she ever wanted was for me to treat Dave and Matthew just like I treated other family members. After this argument, she avoided giving her opinions to me as much about my party. On the day of the party, I was excited to celebrate with my family and friends. Dave had offered to play music for the event, and it was a blast. Matthew, some of my cousins, and I had a great time on the dance floor, enjoying the lively atmosphere. Meanwhile, Dad was busy chatting with some relatives, proudly bragging about the college I was about to attend. However, the only person who stood out as a sore thumb was my mother. She was off in the kitchen, drinking her margarita and clearly avoiding mingling with the rest of us. Her disinterest and detachment were palpable, and it was hard not to notice how she was distancing herself from the celebration. Even Dave noticed how distant she was and went to talk to her, trying to convince her to enjoy the day like the rest of us. When it came time to cut the cake, my mother didn't come to stand next to me while everyone sang happy birthday to me. Dad and I didn't bother, and we simply went ahead and cut the cake, making the most of the moment despite her absence. It was a bittersweet reminder of how strained our relationship had become, even on a day that was meant to be about celebrating me. When the rest of the food started to be served out, I watched as my mother carefully prepared plates for Dave and Matthew. She seemed to take extra care, making sure they had everything they liked. I felt a pang of jealousy watching her serve them with such attention while ignoring me at my own party. I wanted to let the rest of the guests get their food first, so I hung back a little, waiting for my turn. Suddenly, out of nowhere, my mother came up to me, holding a plate of food. I looked at her curiously, unsure of what to make of this unexpected gesture. She handed me the plate and wished me a happy birthday. I was taken aback and asked her what she was doing, especially since she had never, in all the years I could remember, served me a plate of food before. She just shrugged and said that she wanted to do this for me since I was now 18. It was hard to admit, but at that moment, I felt a warm, fuzzy feeling in my stomach. Despite everything, there was something comforting about being taken care of by her, even if it was just with something as simple as serving me a plate of food. For a brief moment, it felt like she was reaching out, trying to bridge the gap that had grown between us. However, as soon as I took a bite of the fish from my plate, I had to spit it out. My mouth was overpowered by an overwhelming taste of salt, and I started to cough uncontrollably. Guests around me turned to look, and some of my cousins quickly offered me water, trying to help me calm down. I looked down at my plate, puzzled, and asked if they found the fish too salty. Bewildered, they shook their heads, confused and increasingly suspicious. I checked my plate again and then glanced over at my mother. Our eyes met, and I noticed she had a smirk on her face. It took me a moment to register that in her hand. She was shaking an empty salt bottle, as if to gesture that she had purposely added too much salt to my fish. Suddenly, I realized that she had clearly tampered with my food. I was dumbfounded as to why she would do that. I went up to her, trying to keep my composure despite the hurt and anger bubbling inside me. "What are you doing?" I asked her, my voice strained. "Did you really put salt on my fish? Why would you even do that?" She looked at me, still smirking, as if the whole thing was just a petty joke. With a cold tone, she told me that she had warned me not to order fish, but I had insisted on it. So this was her way of teaching me a lesson for always being so entitled. She insisted that this was just a harmless prank anyway, but that it would teach me to never argue with her in the future. Her words felt like a punch to the gut, and I realized then just how manipulative and cruel my mother could be. I told her how nasty she was as a parent for even thinking of doing something like this. The fact that she would go so far as to make me feel small and unimportant was overwhelming. My mother just laughed derisively as she walked away, as if I meant nothing. My eyes narrowed in anger as I contemplated how to get revenge on her. With cameras installed around the house, I knew I had a way to expose her. After the party, I decided to download the video from the backyard security camera. The footage clearly showed my mother adding salt to my plate before walking over to me and handing me the plate. Even as I write this, the thought of what she did makes me seethe. I'm planning to share the video with Dave and Matthew when I move out of the house soon. I wish I could confront her or expose her behavior right now, but I'm going to just shut my mouth and bide my time for now until I'm away from her. Update 1. It's been a month and a half since I last updated. I finally moved out of home. My dad helped me get all my boxes to my college dorm, and the rest of my things are at his place for now. I haven't told my dad about what happened with my mother yet because I know he will go ballistic, and I'm worried it might lead to a big argument. Now that I'm out of the house, I'm ready to go through with my plan to expose my mother since she can't hurt me anymore. I think Dave and Matthew deserve to know the truth about my mother, even though it might be hard for them. For everyone asking, I am sure Dave has probably noticed how my mother treats me differently than she treats his son, but he has never interfered anyway. I don't blame him for any of this, and my focus is only on my mother, who is responsible for everything that's happened. Update 2. Okay guys, I listened to everybody's advice. This morning I decided to create a group chat with Dave, Matthew, and my dad. I wrote a detailed message explaining how I had been treated differently from Matthew over the years, making sure to emphasize that Matthew wasn't to blame for any of it. I then described the incident that happened on my birthday where my own mother sabotaged my food by adding an entire bottle of salt and made me spit out the food and disgust just to teach me a lesson. I told them how I had grown tired of my mother's abusive behavior towards me over the years. To back up my story, I sent the video as proof. At the end of my message, I asked Dave if he would ever feel truly comfortable having his son around such a vile woman who had no shame in treating her own daughter this way. He texted me back saying that he would look into it. Update 3. Since I sent that message yesterday, my phone hasn't stopped buzzing. First, my dad called to confirm if everything I said was true and to ask why I never shared all of this with him in detail before. I broke down and explained that I sometimes struggled to open up and that I had always hoped my mother would eventually change her ways. He apologized to me over and over and then told me that he had spent the morning yelling at my mother. He also mentioned that he's giving her a month's notice to move out. He said he had been thinking about it for a while but was hesitant. However, now that he knows how she's been mistreating me for years, he has no sympathy left for her and wants his house back. Dave also reached out to me. He said he had no idea that my mother hated me so much. He always thought it was just typical mother-daughter stuff, so he stayed out of it over the years. But after watching the video, he truly realized how messed up my mother was. When he confronted my mother about it, she started blaming me for everything as usual. This led to a big fight between them, and he decided to take some space from her. He even told me that he's putting their wedding, which was supposed to happen this year, on hold indefinitely. Matthew and I also talked and we're good. As for my mother, she hasn't stopped calling and texting me. Her messages have been all over the place, ranging from hurling abuse at me to threatening me for exposing her. But I don't care anymore. I've just decided to ignore her completely and avoid any interaction with her for the time being. In the end, I have no regrets about exposing my mother, and hopefully she will learn to not mess with me ever again. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My mom sold my stuff and pawned my laptop. I called the cops, had her arrested, and filed a restraining order. Christmas dinner was almost finished when my father put down his fork, looked me directly in the eye and said, "You are a burden, and you can no longer live with us." At first, I assumed I had misheard him. My mother let out a strange, nervous laugh, as if she wasn't convinced he was serious. But then he simply sat there, staring at me, waiting for a reaction. The room went silent. My younger sister, Lily, froze with her fork halfway into her mouth. She glanced at me with wide eyes, as if she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. I swallowed the slice of ham I was chewing and set my fork down. "What? You heard me," he stated. "You've overstayed your welcome. You need to move out." The reality check. I just sat there trying to process. I was 23. I had a regular career and could have left long ago. But I stayed because they needed me. I paid the energy bill, internet, and groceries most weeks, which they couldn't afford because my father had been unemployed for years, and my mother only worked part-time. I was not a burden. I was the reason the lights remained on in that house. And now, out of nowhere, I'm being tossed out like a useless freeloader. Mom has finally spoken up. "Maybe we should talk about this later." "No," Dad interrupted. "This is my house. I make the rules and I say he's done here." Lily's fear. Lily sat down her fork. She was barely 16, and I could tell she was afraid. She looked at our parents as if she didn't recognize them. What did it mean for her that they could throw me out so easily? I took a deep breath. I wasn't about to argue or plead. What if they wanted me out? Fine. But they were not prepared for what that really meant. I slumped back in my chair. "All right," I said. Dad sat up straighter, as if he had won an imaginary fight. Mom still looked uneasy, but she said nothing. Perhaps she was in shock. Perhaps she didn't care as much as I imagined she would. I stood up, grabbed my plate, and took it to the sink. I didn't want to give them the reaction they expected. Instead, I gazed at Lily, who remained tight and uncertain. I gave her a slight nod. She was the only one at the table that I still cared about. Dad sipped his drink as if nothing had happened. Mom returned to picking at her mashed potatoes. Lily continued looking at me as if she wanted to say something but didn't. I did not remain to complete dinner. I just walked out. The silent goodbye. That night, I walked directly to my room, closed the door, and began packing. I wasn't going to waste time figuring out why they were doing this. If they wanted me gone, I was gone. However, this meant they would lose all I had paid for, and I wasn't about to warn them. I packed quietly, but I could hear them talking below. Mom's voice sounded low and terrified. Dad's tone sounded forceful, as if he were attempting to persuade her of anything. I caught bits and pieces. He's old enough. We can handle it. He should have moved out years ago. An hour later, Lily knocked at my door. I opened it and she slipped inside, closing it behind her. She appeared distressed, her eyes red as if she had been sobbing. "What the hell was that?" she said. "I don't know," I replied, tucking my laptop into my bag. "But I'm leaving tomorrow." She shook her head. "That's crazy. You pay for everything. They can't even afford food without you." "Not my problem anymore." Lily bit her lip, clearly attempting to keep back more tears. "Where are you going?" "I'll figure it out." The fact was that I had some money saved up, but I had not intended on moving out so soon. I'd have to locate a place quickly, perhaps staying at a friend's for a while, but I wasn't concerned. I would be all right. They would not. Lily paused. "Can I?" She stopped herself. I knew what she'd ask. She wanted to join me, but she was still in high school, and as much as I disliked leaving her behind, I couldn't bring her with me. "You know they'd never let that happen." "You said." She stared down at the floor. "Yeah." I finished packing while she stood there as if she didn't want to go. Finally, she sighed. "You're going to regret this." I grinned. "I know." The next morning, I left before they even awoke. I hauled my bags downstairs, loaded my car, and took one last glance around the house. There's no sadness, no regret, just relief. Then, as I was driving out of the driveway, I entered my banking app and erased my name off all bills. Electric, internet, water, even the Netflix account. I had paid for each of them. Without me, everything would shut down within a month. I grinned, put my car into drive, and drove away without looking back. For the next few days, I stayed at my friend Jake's apartment while looking for a place of my own. His sofa sucked. His dog, Max, would not stop looking at me while I tried to sleep. His roommate repeatedly asked, "Are you staying forever?" But none of this mattered because I was free. No more paying for a house that I didn't want to live in. No longer pretending to appreciate a man who threw me out of Christmas dinner. No more being regarded as a walking ATM. I was finally doing something for myself. 3 days after I left, my phone started ringing. Initially, I ignored it. 7 missed calls from my mother. My father called me twice, which surprised me because he seldom did. Lily sent a handful of SMS. I also ignored those until she sent it. "They're freaking out. The power's been cut off." I grinned. They honestly believed that the bills would magically pay themselves. Then another text. "Dad's losing his mind. He said you did something to the house." Oh, this was getting better. I could just imagine Dad stomping about in the dark, cursing at my mother while she cried over the Wi-Fi being down. An hour later, my phone called again. This time, I responded. The moment I took up the phone, my mother's voice hit me like a hurricane. "Kevin, we don't know what happened. The power's out. The internet's down. The water bill. You didn't pay," I replied simply. Silence. Then, in a hushed voice, "You paid for these?" I nearly laughed. "Are you serious? Who else did you think was paying for them?" She paused. "Your father said." She interrupted herself. I already knew. My father was too proud to acknowledge he didn't know how things worked. He presumably assured her that everything would be all right, that the house would function flawlessly even without me. "Not my problem anymore," I said. "Kevin, please, we didn't mean." I hung up. Not my problem anymore, I assumed. That was the end of it. They would figure it out. Perhaps my father will finally get off his ass and get a job. Perhaps my mother would work more hours. Perhaps they will sell something to keep the lights on. Either way, it's not my concern. The next morning, I awoke to a message from my bank. Fraud alert. A suspicious login attempt was detected. I sat up fast, my heart racing. I checked my email. 3 additional alerts. Someone had attempted to enter my account, and I already recognized who it was. I quickly logged in and went over my purchases. Nothing had been taken yet, but there it was, an attempt to reset a password. Another failed login, then a third. I clenched my jaw. My father must have been quite desperate. Calling Lily. I phoned Lily. She responded right away. "I was just about to call you," she said quietly. "Dad's freaking out. He keeps yelling about money. He was on the computer all morning." I breathed sharply. "Trying to get into my bank account?" She was silent for a second before cursing beneath her breath. "Does he have my old passwords?" I inquired. "Probably," she confessed. "You know how Mom used to keep them in that little notebook by the computer." I knew it. My father must have gone through that, figuring I'd be stupid enough to continue using the same passwords from high school. "Kevin," Lily whispered. Her voice shook. "He's really pissed. I think." She paused. I heard shouts in the background, my father's booming voice, the banging of doors, and my mother crying. "I think he's going to do something stupid." Lily's words sent shivers down my spine. "What do you mean? What did he say?" I inquired, squeezing my phone more tightly. She lowered her voice. "He's saying you ruined us, that you did this on purpose to screw him over. He's talking about calling the cops." I nearly laughed. "For what? Not paying his bills?" "I don't know," she hissed. "He's losing it. Mom's crying, saying she'll talk to you, but he won't listen. He keeps saying he's not going to get away with this. Kevin, I think he wants to go after you." That took the smile off my face. I had expected my father to get desperate, to beg, perhaps even try to guilt-trip me. But to believe he would gain revenge on me? That was a new level of foolishness. Locking down everything. "Lock your door," I instructed her. "If he does something crazy, call me." I hung up and quickly changed all of my passwords. Bank accounts, email, streaming services, even my Amazon login. Then I called my bank to report the hacking attempt. They had locked my account so tightly that I even had difficulty logging in for a few hours. I assumed that was the end of it. I was completely mistaken. That night, Jake and I were hanging out in his apartment, playing some ridiculous Xbox game. Then, bang! Someone slammed the door hard. Jake paused the game. "Are you expecting someone?" I was not. I already got a horrible feeling. I got up, walked to the peephole, and my stomach dropped. It was my father. He was standing in the corridor, hands clenched and breathing like a bull prepared to charge. Jake asked, "Who is it?" I stepped back from the door. "My dad." Jake stood up. "Dude, what's going on?" Bang. "Kevin, open the door." I did not move. Bang. This time it's harder. "I know you're in there. You think you can just walk away from this?" Jake scowled at me. "Dude, should we?" Before he finished, my father kicked the door in, calling 911. That was it. I grabbed my phone and called 911. "My dad just showed up at my apartment," I told the dispatcher. "He's banging on the door, yelling at me, and he just tried to kick it in." Jake stepped back. "Kevin, this is crazy." I met his gaze. "Yeah, I know." I held the phone to my ear while my father continued yelling. "You ungrateful little. You think you can just walk away? You owe us." "Sir, officers are on their way," the dispatcher stated. 2 minutes later, I heard sirens. Then my father's voice went silent. A knock at the door. "Police, open up." I opened the door just in time to see 2 officers handcuff my father. His face was hot, and his chest heaved. But as he noticed me standing there, his expression altered. There were no regrets. There is no humiliation. Just pure hatred. "You did this," he muttered as he was dragged away. I simply stood there unaffected because the reality was he did this to himself. They took my father away that night, but I knew things weren't finished. An hour later, Lily called. "Mom's losing it," she explained. "She's crying and saying it's all your fault." "Yeah, that sounds about right. She keeps saying you have to fix this. She's already calling people, trying to get bail money." I nearly laughed. "With what money?" Silence. "Because we knew they didn't have any. No electricity. There's no internet, no savings, and now there is no father figure to yell at everyone while trying to be in charge. Without me, they were sinking quickly. I should have felt bad, but I only felt relief. Keep an eye on her, I advised Lily. If she does anything crazy, call me. Lily texted me the next morning, "Mom's selling your stuff." I froze. Then I called her. She picked up immediately, her voice harsh. "I told you to fix this. Are you selling my stuff?" A pause. Then bluntly, "We need money, Kevin." I clenched my jaw. "So you're stealing from me? You don't live here anymore," she yelled. "You left all this behind. It's in our house. That makes it ours." She felt no regret. There is no guilt. It's just entitlement. "I'm calling the cops." "Don't you dare." I hung up. Then I phoned the cops. 2 hours later, I received a call back. "We talked to your mother," the officer stated. "She wasn't happy, but she's agreed to hold your things until you can pick them up." I messaged Lily, "I'm coming over." But I should have realized they were not prepared, because when I arrived at the house, something made my stomach plummet. My automobile sitting on the driveway. It should not have been there. I had left it at Jake's flat. I turned off the engine, my heart thumping. My car wasn't simply here. It had been driven. The front seat was folded back as if someone had sat in it. The glove compartment was open, and worst of all, the gas tank was nearly empty. I clenched my fist. They'd stolen my car. The confrontation. Before I could exit, the front door swung open. My mother stepped outside, arms crossed. "You called the cops on me," she remarked. "You stole my car." I snapped back. She scoffed. "It was just sitting there. You weren't using it." I stared at her, trying to grasp the absurdity of this logic. "It's my car. How did you even get it?" She didn't respond, but I already knew. They had an extra key. "Mom," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "if you don't give me my key, I'm calling the cops again." Her expression flickered for a second. Then, without speaking, she stormed inside. A minute later, she returned and threw the key at me. It struck my chest and landed on the grass. "There," she spat. "Happy?" I picked it up, trying not to be angry. "I'm taking my things, and then I'm leaving for good." I walked past her and into the home. Lily waited in the hall, looking nervous. "She took your laptop and pawned it," she said quietly. I closed my eyes. Take a breath in, breathe out. Then I turned to my mother. "Where's my laptop?" She raised her chin. "I told you we needed money. That was it." I took out my phone, dialed 911 for the second time this week, and let her watch. "Yes, I want to report a stolen vehicle and stolen property," I responded, looking her dead in the eyes. "My mother has just revealed that she pawned my laptop without authorization." Her face lost its color. This time, she was the one who had to deal with the police. My mother worried when she realized I wasn't bluffing. "You can't do this," she muttered, her tone low. "I'm your mother." I ignored her. "Yes, officer. I have proof that she admitted to taking my belongings and pawning them," I stated over the phone. "I want to press charges." Lily stood motionless, her gaze flitting between us. My mother's hands were shaking now. She was absolutely taken aback, as if she believed she could keep pushing and I would never push back. "Kevin," she said again, this time softly, like if she were pleading, "we're struggling. Your father's in jail." I had no choice. "You had a choice," I explained. "You could have worked more. You could have sold your own stuff. You could have asked for help instead of throwing me out like garbage." She blinked rapidly, her face contorted. "I was angry." I laughed. "Yeah, so was I." I heard sirens outside. My mother jumped. A few minutes later, 2 officers walked through the door. "Sir, did you call about the stolen property?" one of them inquired. I nodded and pointed to my mother. "She took my laptop and pawned it. I want to press charges." My mother gasped as if I'd stabbed her. "Kevin, don't do this." The officers turned to her. "Ma'am, is this true?" She hesitated, her gaze shifting between me, Lily, and the cops. I could see her calculating, attempting to determine whether she could lie her way out of this. Then Lily spoke. She told him herself, just before he called you. My mother snapped her head at Lily so quickly it was almost frightening. You little... Ma'am! One of the cops interrupted her. Do you have a receipt from the pawn shop? Her face fell. She knew what was coming. They took her outside. I looked through the window while they spoke with her for a few minutes. Handcuffs appeared unexpectedly. She was straining, crying, and yelling. Neighbors looked through their blinds. The entire street most likely heard her weeping about how she was simply a struggling mother and how unjust this was. Lily's realization. Lily stood beside me, looking out the window. She gulped hard. Is this really happening? I nodded. Yes. And for the first time in a long time I felt calm. The text message. My phone buzzed with a message from an unexpected number. You're going to regret this. My chest tightened. I read it again. Then I realized. My father had been released on bond. When I saw that message, I knew exactly what had occurred. Someone had bailed my father out, and I had a fairly solid idea who. Probably one of his old drinking cronies, or perhaps a distant family member who hadn't heard the entire story. In any case, he was done and angry. I showed Lily the text. Her face turned pale. Kevin, you need to leave. No, I replied. I turned to face the cops who were still outside, dealing with my mother. Can I go in and get the rest of my stuff? One of them nodded. As long as it's okay with your sister. Lily was already moving. Let's make this quick. We walked upstairs and packed everything that was mine. Clothes, old video games, even the silly things I had left behind, thinking I'd come back for them one day. I was not coming back. Ever. As I took the last box to my car, my mother was still crying in the driveway, pleading with the officers to let her go. This is a misunderstanding. He's my son. He wouldn't do this to me. I just strolled by her, unconcerned. She screamed my name as if it would suddenly change anything. I got in my car. Lily stood in front of my window, shuffling from foot to foot. I don't want to stay here, I exhaled. I know you don't, but you only have 2 years until you're 18. She nodded with watery eyes. I'll be fine. I'll just be quiet and keep my head down. Call me if anything happens. She nodded again. Then headlights arrived on the roadway. An automobile turned onto our street. My stomach sank. It was my father. He pulled up right as I started the engine. He hardly had time to go before I put it in reverse and backed into the street. He stared at me with hatred in his eyes, as if he were about to approach and try something. I rolled down my window just enough to carry my voice. You try to come near me again. I'm filing a restraining order. His hands tightened into fists. You think you're better than us? I smiled. I know I am. Then I drove away. It was the last time I saw them. I blocked my parents' phone numbers, changed my financial information, moved, and never looked back. Lily's independence. Lily kept out for 2 years, just as she promised. She left as soon as she turned 18. She moved in with a buddy and headed off to college. We're still talking all the time. The consequences. My parents. My father never had a job. My mother lost the house a year later. They bounced around for a while, destroying relationships with family, and the last I heard, they were renting a dilapidated flat in a poor neighborhood. They attempted to reach out to me. Facebook messages, unknown numbers, even letters. I never responded, because they had made their pick for Christmas dinner and I made mine. Now on to the next story. Story 7. I bought a house, but my family expected me to house my sister's family for free. I refused, cut them off, and I'm moving to London. I 35F, work as an investment analyst and am pretty successful in my job. Growing up with an older sister, Victoria, 38F. I realized early on that if I wanted something, I had to work for it myself. From the start, our parents' treatment of us was noticeably different. When Victoria turned 16, she received a nice new Volkswagen Beetle with a large red bow on top. When it was my turn, I got Dad's ancient Honda, which had 150,000 miles and a tendency to break down. Victoria has always been the ideal child in our parents' eyes. She was the beautiful one, the social butterfly, the one who couldn't do anything wrong. She married her husband, Nathan, 39M, right after graduation, and they quickly began having children. They currently have 3, Charlotte, 8F, Lucas, 5M, and Andrew, 2M. They live in a rental flat, which Toria frequently complains about. Meanwhile, I have been more fortunate in my own way. My best friend's parents own numerous properties and have been renting me a wonderful one-bedroom apartment at half of the market rate for the last 5 years. They trust me because I've never given them any reason not to. While Victoria had everything handed to her, I learned to be cautious with money. Since I began working, I've been saving diligently by living within my means, cooking at home rather than eating out, and taking public transportation whenever possible. My coworkers frequently mock me for being overly frugal, but I had a plan. College provided another striking evidence of inequity. Victoria attended her ideal school with our parents covering all expenses, including tuition, lodging and board, and a hefty monthly allowance. Meanwhile, throughout my final year of high school, I applied for every scholarship I could find, staying up late to maintain my perfect GPA, knowing that it was my last chance at higher study. With remote work becoming more widespread at my company, I just need to come into the office for key meetings. A tranquil country cottage seemed ideal. Last week, I finally opened my savings account and examined the data. After years of diligent planning and saving, I had enough to make a down payment on a small home. I was in the middle of looking through real estate listings when my mother called with her usual impeccable timing. "Don't forget, we're expecting you for dinner on Saturday," she added, her voice carrying a subtle order disguised as a reminder. "Victoria and Nathan are coming with the kids, and please try to be on time for once." I arrived at my parents' suburban home at precisely 5:05 p.m. that Saturday. Their driveway was already full with Victoria's minivan, so I had to park on the street. Inside, there was the usual chaos. Kids running around, my mother fussing over everyone as if it were a state supper rather than our typical family meeting. My father had already retired into his usual recliner with his newspaper, where he would remain until supper was served. The traditional dinner complaints circulated. Nathan complains about his demanding supervisor and difficult project deadlines. Victoria laments their tight flat and the children's constant demands. Dad expressed concerns about the economy and gas prices. Mom frequently adds to the commotion by commenting on everyone's eating habits and portion amounts. During these evenings, I mastered the art of mental escape. I took advantage of the hubbub by checking my phone under the table and scrolling through a lovely small home I had discovered. 2 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a stunning garden. The pricing was within my budget. The listing images depicted a beautiful wraparound porch, ideal for a set of rocking chairs. The prospect of sitting there with my morning coffee made me happy. "What's so interesting on that phone? You barely touched your food." Mom's piercing voice broke through the background commotion. Her hawk-like eyes never skipped a beat despite the commotion. I could have made something up about work, but perhaps the warmth of the fantasy still lingering in my head compelled me to be honest. "Actually, I'm looking at houses. I'm thinking about buying one soon." The silence that followed was terrible. You could hear the ice cubes settling in the water cups. Even the children realized something had changed. Charlotte paused in the middle of a conversation about her school performance. Lucas halted his fork halfway to his mouth. Even tiny Andrew stopped slamming his spoon against his high chair. Victoria's head shot up so quickly that I worried she could suffer whiplash. Nathan's incessant rant about his boss ended in mid-sentence. Mom's hand paused in the middle of reaching for the salt shaker. Dad's newspaper descended gently like a curtain, showing his astonished expression. "Buy a house?" Mom asked as if she hadn't heard me right. "You?" "Well, yes," I admitted, immediately regretting my candor. The way they all looked at me made me feel like I had announced plans to invade Mars. "I'm just looking at options right now. Nothing definite." "What kind of house?" Victoria said, her voice retaining the strangely pointed tone she used when she felt threatened. It was the same tone she used when I received a higher SAT score than she did, just before convincing our parents that I had cheated. "I haven't really decided yet, I answered ambiguously, attempting to change the conversation. But I could sense their minds working, unspoken thoughts nearly palpable in the air. My parents exchanged profound looks, the type they'd honed over decades of marriage. Victoria kept looking at Nathan, who had suddenly become quite interested in his mashed potatoes. The typical supper bustle soon resumed, but something had changed. The talk felt forced, as if players had forgotten their lines and were desperately trying to finish the show. Even the children appeared to pick up on the stress, and their usual loud demeanor subsided. A week later, my phone began to vibrate with Mom's calls during an important Zoom conference. After her third effort, I called back during my lunch break, expecting an emergency. Finally, Mom said, her voice practically trembling from joy, "I found the perfect house for you." Martha from church informed her of a listing in her neighborhood. "It's absolutely ideal." I sat down my half-eaten lunch. Immediately, a headache formed. "Mom, I haven't even asked for help finding a house." But she was now in full stride and unable to halt. "It has 5 bedrooms. No, 6. The master bedroom is huge, and there are these adorable children's rooms with built-in closets." I blinked. "Oh, and the backyard. There's already a playground installed. Can you believe it? And the location is just perfect. Walking distance to St. Mary's Elementary School and the public library." I stroked my temples, trying to remain cool. "Mom, I appreciate you thinking of me, but that's not what I'm looking for at all. I want a small country house, something cozy just for me. I don't need multiple children's rooms or a playground." "Don't be ridiculous," she yelled, her delight quickly turning into frustration. "You can't just think about yourself. You need to plan ahead. This house is perfect. Martha says the owners are motivated to sell quickly." After she hung up, Victoria began sending out an endless stream of postings for large family houses. Each subsequent message delivered another 4 to 6 bedroom house with numerous baths, large yards, and close proximity to schools and parks. By the 20th message, I had stopped checking. It was evident that they weren't listening to what I really wanted. Instead, I contacted Amanda Chaw, a realtor with glowing recommendations. During our first encounter, I was struck by how well she listened. "I want something small and cozy," I explained. "A country house not too far from the city, with good internet for remote work. Maybe a small garden where I could grow herbs and vegetables." When I told her about my pricing range, her eyes brightened up. "I think I might have exactly what you're looking for. It just came on the market yesterday." The house she showed me was ideal. A lovely 2-bedroom cottage located 40 minutes from the city, with white siding, dark green shutters, and a wraparound porch with room for rocking chairs. Sunlight poured in via huge windows onto an open-plan living room. The kitchen was not large, but it had been redone with butcher block countertops and modern appliances. A wood-burning fireplace dominated the living room wall, and I could envision nice winter days spent reading beside it. Upstairs, there were 2 modest bedrooms and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub, which I fell in love with right away. But the sunroom sealed the deal. There are windows on 3 sides that view a well-kept garden with raised beds and a small greenhouse. I could immediately envision myself spending weekends there, surrounded by greenery and natural light. The owner offered a quick closing discount, and I accepted without hesitation. The following few weeks were a blur of paperwork and preparation. I put down a larger down payment than was required, keeping the monthly payments manageable using the money I had carefully saved all these years. While my family undoubtedly believed I was being cheap, I was actually building my future. After everything was finalized, I planned to announce the news at the next family dinner. Mom had just started discussing another house. "Barbara next door is selling. She'll give us, you, a good price." "Actually," I interrupted, unable to suppress my joy despite their past attempts to sway my decision, "I've already bought a house." The hush was absolute. Even Charlotte, who is normally unstoppable, paused in mid-motion. I took a big breath and began detailing my new house, my voice full of enthusiasm despite the mounting tension around the table. "It's this beautiful cottage about 40 minutes outside the city, 2 bedrooms, the most amazing sunroom, And there's even a small greenhouse in the backyard. The previous owner had these gorgeous raised garden beds. My father's fist hit the table with such power that the water glasses jumped. "Are you out of your mind?" he exclaimed. I had never seen him that angry before. Andrew burst into tears as he heard the startling boom. "How dare you buy a house without consulting us first?" My mother's cheeks had turned an alarming red. "After all those perfect family homes we found, why would I need to consult you about buying my own house with my own money?" I inquired, feeling as if I had wandered into some strange parallel dimension. "Because we had it all planned out." Mom practically screamed. "Barbara's house would have been perfect. Right here in the neighborhood. Plenty of room for everyone." "Room for everyone?" I asked, slowly growing confused. "It's just going to be me living there." The hush that ensued was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged glances as Victoria sat there with an unusually serene demeanor. Nathan was suddenly quite interested in his plate. "Actually," Mom explained in a tone that made my blood run cold, "the plan was for Victoria, Nathan, and the kids to live there with you." I waited for the punch line. It didn't arrive. Victoria nodded as if everything was totally normal. "We're so cramped in that apartment. Your house would give us all the space we need, and since we wouldn't have to pay rent or utilities, we could finally start saving money." I gazed about at their dead serious expressions. Dad's severe condemnation, Mom's righteous rage, Victoria's entitled expectation, Nathan's awkward avoidance. Years of memories flowed back. Every time Victoria got what she wanted while I worked twice as hard for half the pay. Every time my successes were ignored while her slightest achievements were praised. "You all just assumed I would buy a house for Victoria's family to live in?" "Well, of course." Mom threw out her hands as if I was being intentionally cryptic. "That's what family does. This isn't helping. This is expecting me to house 5 people without even asking me." "You're being selfish," Victoria shouted, her cool demeanor breaking. "The kids have to share rooms. Andrew's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to them. You need to cancel this ridiculous purchase immediately," Mom commanded, her voice harsh with the control she had exercised over me for 35 years. "Barbara's house is perfect. Right in the neighborhood." "No." I stood up, scraping my chair against the floor. The word came out stronger than I expected, bearing the weight of decades of pent-up rage. Chaos erupted. Mom jumped up and waved her arms. Dad's voice roared. The children started crying. "But we'll be so cramped," Victoria moaned, as if I hadn't said anything. "Charlotte has ballet, Lucas has soccer. You're not going to be cramped anywhere because you're not living in my house," I said calmly. "None of you are, ever. Is that clear enough for you?" They stared at me as if I had a second head. The entitled shock on their faces was nearly amusing. "How can you be so cruel to your own sister?" Mom asked, clutching her pearls and her voice shaking with wrath. I grabbed my handbag and walked towards the door, their shouts rising behind me in a cacophony of demands and accusations. I couldn't hear another word. I got in my car and drove home in a haze, their entitled expectations still echoing in my ears. Update 1. The aggressive knocking on my flat door began as I was packing the kitchen. The coffee mug I was wrapping in newspaper slid from my grasp but landed safely on a mound of packing paper. "Open this door right now." My father's voice rang through the wood. "We know you're in there." I froze, bubble wrap still in my fingers. More thumping ensued. "Go away," I yelled back. "I'm not discussing this anymore. Don't you dare talk to us like that." Dad's fist caused the door to rattle in its frame. "We raised you better than this." My hands trembled as I took up the phone. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. I mean it." I pulled up the keypad and purposefully pushed digits, ensuring that they could hear the beeping. "I'm dialing right now." Dad's curse was broken by Mom's sudden intake of air. "We're leaving." Mom's voice had become as icy as ice. "But this isn't over. You're making a terrible mistake." I slid down against the wall, my heart thumping, after hearing their footsteps disappear down the corridor. An hour later, Victoria sent the first message, which included a photo of Charlotte and Lucas squished together on their shared bunk bed. "Look how little space they have," the caption stated. "Charlotte can't even have a desk for homework." When I didn't answer, another photo appeared. Andrew's crib squeezed into the corner of Victoria and Nathan's room. "He wakes up every time we come to bed. This isn't fair to him." As I continued to ignore her, Victoria's communications became increasingly hostile. They began arriving at all hours, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and 6 a.m. "You always were Dad's least favorite. Mom cries herself to sleep because of you. I hope you're happy all alone in that big house while your nieces and nephew suffer." I blocked her phone number, then her Facebook, then her Instagram, but she kept finding new ways to contact me, setting up new accounts, using Nathan's phone, and even inventing false email addresses. The phone calls began to come from different directions. First, there was Aunt Marie. "Sweetie, I just heard what's happening with your sister. Surely you can find it in your heart to help family." Uncle Bob was next. "Kid, you need to think about what really matters here. Family comes first. Susan is my mother's dearest friend. Your mother is devastated. How could you do this to your own family?" Even my former high school teacher, Mrs. Peterson, whom my mother still saw at church. "I always thought you were such a kind student. I'm so disappointed to hear about this situation with your sister." They all sent the same message. I was selfish, heartless, cruel. I should give up my home, my goals, and my independence to help Victoria. None of them seemed to wonder why Victoria's living predicament was my concern. After 2 weeks of incessant pestering, I'd had it. I went to my cell carrier and changed my phone number, giving it solely to my employer and a few trustworthy pals who had not chosen sides in this fiasco. Moving day was blissfully quiet. I chose a moving firm I'd never used before, ensuring that my relatives couldn't track my address using common local services. The movers worked quickly and professionally, and by dusk, I was standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. That first night at my cottage, I sat on my veranda with a cup of tea, listening to the crickets and watching the stars appear. There's no traffic noise, no sirens. There's no family turmoil, just peace. I felt something inside me suddenly relax, a tightness I hadn't realized I'd been lugging around for years. I occasionally check their social media updates. Victoria posts passive-aggressive status messages about family betrayal and selfish siblings. Mom's barely veiled posts about ungrateful children and family obligations. Relatives and family friends made comments, everyone taking sides without understanding the whole tale. But here's the thing, none of it concerns me anymore. Their comments can't reach me in my new refuge. I turned the second bedroom into a home office, positioning my monitors to face the window so I can watch birds visit the feeder I erected. The previous owner's raised garden beds are currently overflowing with herbs and vegetables. My first try at gardening was surprisingly successful. For the first time in my life, I am living fully on my own terms, and it feels really liberated. Update 2. Something unexpected occurred today. Remember the large investment project I've been working on remotely from my new home? Paid out hugely. My manager summoned me to a virtual meeting to inform me that I had not only received a significant bonus, but was also being considered for a director job. My new environment's quiet and focus had enabled me to excel at work in ways I had never believed possible. Without regular family interruptions and emotional exhaustion, I found myself proposing new ideas and taking on leadership roles naturally. This triumph, however, resulted in an interesting development. Victoria's apartment complex was sold to a developer who intends to transform it into luxury condominiums. All tenants received eviction notifications with a 60-day notice to vacate. I learned from family members that Victoria and Nathan were having difficulty finding a new place that fit their budget. The timing could not have been better. My promotion comes with a large salary boost, and I chose to utilize my bonus to make a down payment on a lovely holiday home in the mountains. It's essentially an investment as property values in that neighborhood have skyrocketed. Today, I received a well-phrased email from Nathan, not Victoria. Interestingly enough, he described their predicament and asked if I would like to negotiate housing arrangements again. The old me may have felt guilty, Despite everything, I could have considered helping. But I simply gave them some local apartment listings that fit their budget and wished them luck in their quest. Mom took a different approach. She showed up in my workplace building. I suppose she got the address from LinkedIn. With tears in her eyes, she described how she and her father were struggling with their retirement money and had always relied on the family sticking together to help each other in their golden years. I listened politely. Then I stated that my financial advisor had advised against combining family and financial commitments. Her face turned a familiar shade of red, but this time in the professional setting of my company lobby, she couldn't cause a fuss. The family's social media campaign has taken a unique turn. They are now writing about wealthy people who have lost touch with their roots, as well as stories on toxic individualism and modern society. My aunt even wrote a lengthy Facebook post about how money can transform people, to which hundreds of people responded sympathetically. But they are unaware that my accomplishment has drawn the attention of headhunters. Several famous firms, including one in Europe, have expressed interest in hiring me. The idea of putting an ocean between myself and this drama is getting more enticing. Meanwhile, my new greenhouse is flourishing. I've started growing exotic orchids, which are delicate and require time and attention to detail, similar to creating a job or limits. I'm discovering that the most satisfying experiences in life require time and effort to cultivate. I joined a local gardening group, which has become a fantastic source of camaraderie. These people have no idea about my family issues. They just know me as the woman who brings homegrown herbs to meetings and asks in-depth questions about soil pH. It's refreshing to be judged entirely on who I am rather than my willingness to give up my life for the sake of others' convenience. Yesterday, I held my first dinner party in my new house. Colleagues, gardening friends, and neighbors gathered at my dining table to share wonderful food and conversation. No one asked anything from me, except possibly the recipe for my herb-crusted salmon. The evening was filled with laughter, intelligent conversation, and mutual respect. All of the things that family gatherings should be but never are. As I watched my visitors have fun on the porch and fireflies dance in the yard beyond, I realized something important. I haven't simply purchased a house. I've built a life that is totally my own, free of the burden of others' expectations and entitlements. Allow them to submit their passive-aggressive messages. Let them discuss family duty and obligation. I'm too busy thriving to worry. Update 3. The last elements of my win fell into place today. Victoria and Nathan were unable to acquire a new apartment. Their credit check found some alarming findings. They're currently temporarily residing with our parents, with all 3 kids squeezed into the guest room. Meanwhile, I received an official offer for the director post in our London office. The remuneration package is outstanding, including a lovely company-provided flat in Kensington. When I announced my acceptance on LinkedIn, professional congrats flooded in. The contrast between my colleagues' sincere support and my family's harsh silence was startling. The most rewarding moment was when Dad called. His voice lacked the usual authority. He began by casually asking about this London foolishness, but it soon became evident why he was calling. The recent market slump has significantly reduced their retirement savings. They'd reportedly planned to sell their home and move in with Victoria's family in the house they anticipated me to buy. We always assumed we'd all be together, he added, his voice unusually shaky. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger. I stayed professional and detached, offering a great financial advisor I know. She specializes in retirement planning for seniors. I'll email you her contact information. My family is unaware that I have already made arrangements to manage my mountain home as a premium vacation rental. The predicted income is impressive, more than enough to pay Victoria's whole monthly rent. Strangely, but it is not information I intend to convey. Today I held a farewell garden party for my local friends. The greenhouse was in full flower, with orchids providing a beautiful backdrop. As I watched my visitors have fun, someone commented on how much I've changed since moving here, how I appear more confident and at ease. Later that evening, while packing for London, I discovered an old photo album. There was a photo of teenage Victoria receiving her brand new Volkswagen, and I was standing in the background next to Dad's ancient Honda. the recollection no longer stings. Instead, it makes me realize how far I've come. I am retaining my rustic cottage. It will be my getaway when I visit the United States. The garden will be maintained by a nice retired couple from my gardening group, while the house will remain my sanctuary, free of family strife. Tomorrow, I'll board a flight to London. My family does not yet know. They will find out when they see my social media posts from Hyde Park or along the Thames. Victoria will probably write about sisters who desert their families. Mom will share articles on expats who regret abandoning their loved ones. But sitting here in my sunroom one final time before my early morning journey, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant colors, I feel nothing but peace. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the battle, but choosing to leave the battlefield entirely. Allow them to deal with their cramped living conditions and financial challenges. I'll be too busy enjoying my new life in London to read their social media updates. Sometimes the best retaliation is simply living well. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My sister demanded I be her surrogate, then faked an application. Now she's pregnant, but the shocking truth changed everything. I never expected to share this on Reddit, but life has a way of surprising you. I'm Sarah, 28F, and my life turned upside down around 6 months ago. It all began when my sister, Angelina, 32F, revealed her pregnancy. Angelina and I have always had a difficult connection. We grew up 4 years apart, so we were never in the same stage of life at the same time. Angelina was always the ideal child, a leader of the debate team and first chair violin in the school orchestra. In contrast, I was a more free-spirited individual. I fared well in school, but I was more interested in computers and programming. Our parents, particularly our mother, always seemed to prefer Angelina. They would attend all of her recitals and debates, but they were sometimes unable to attend my coding competitions. This caused a schism between us that only widened as we grew older. When Angelina met Tom, 34M, in college, it appeared that her ideal life was complete. They married shortly after college, and everyone expected them to begin a family immediately. But years passed and no baby arrived. Angelina never said much about it, but I could see it bothered her. Meanwhile, I concentrated on my career. I became a software developer, got a terrific job at a tech firm, and purchased my own apartment. I was content with my life, even though it was not the usual route my parents had envisioned for me. So, when Angelina announced her pregnancy, I was ecstatic for her. I hoped that this would finally bring us closer as sisters. But then Angelina dropped the bombshell. I was going to be the surrogate mother. Not asked, told. I was shocked. Angelina and I were not close enough for her to believe I would do something like this. We only communicated once a month, and it was generally simply to catch up on the basics. So for her to simply believe I'd carry her baby was mind-boggling. When I tried to tell her I was uncomfortable with the notion, she dismissed it. "Oh, come on, Sarah," she said. "It's not a big deal. You're not using your uterus right now anyway." I couldn't believe what I heard. Not using my uterus? Was she serious? I tried to explain that becoming a surrogate was a big decision that would impact my body, employment, and life for at least 9 months. But Angelina would not listen. She continued saying how she and Tom had been trying for so long, how this was their final opportunity, and how I was being selfish by not wanting to help. Things worsened when our parents became involved. Mom, 56F, and Dad, 58M, agreed with Angelina as usual. They began phoning me every day, reminding me how important family is and that I should be willing to do everything for my sister. Dad went further. "Sarah, this is your chance to finally do something meaningful with your life." That hurt. I have a fantastic career, my own house, and a life I'm proud of. But none of that matters now, since I refused to be an incubator for my sister. It felt like I was back in high school, constantly compared to Angelina and left lacking. The pressure continued increasing. Angelina began telling her extended family and acquaintances about her wonderful sister who would be her surrogate. She even mentioned it on Facebook before I committed to anything. Suddenly, I began receiving letters from relatives, uncles, and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, all congratulating me for my selflessness. I attempted to correct the record, but Angelina had already spun her story. Anyone I told the truth to either didn't believe me or thought I was overly theatrical. "It's just 9 months," they'd say. "Don't you want your sister to be happy?" But it was more than just 9 months. It was my body, profession, and life. I had recently been promoted to lead developer on a significant project at work. How was I meant to handle it while pregnant? What about the health hazards and possible long-term repercussions on my body? Nobody appeared to care about any of this. The final straw came at a family supper. Angelina had asked everyone around to celebrate her imminent surrogacy. I hadn't agreed to anything, but she pretended it was a done deal. As we sat around the table, she began discussing her nursery ideas and her excitement for me to begin hormone therapy. I could not handle it anymore. I stood up and told them the truth. I stated that I had never consented to be a surrogate, that Angelina had lied to everyone, and that I was tired of being bullied and guilted into doing something I did not want to do. The room became quiet. Then all hell broke loose. Angelina erupted into sobs, claiming that I was spoiling her one opportunity at parenthood. Mom and Dad began yelling at me, calling me selfish and callous. Tom merely sat there, looking uneasy. I left the dinner feeling wild. Was I actually the bad guy here? Was I being selfish by refusing to give up my body and life for 9 months? I didn't think so, but my family appeared to think differently. Since that night, things have been strained. Angelina isn't speaking with me. Mom and Dad keep sending guilt-inducing voicemail messages. Even some of my friends have been strange about it, saying things like, "Well, if it was my sister, I'd do it. I'm standing my ground, but it's tough. I feel like I'm losing my family over this, but I also can't believe they're putting so much pressure on me. It's my body, so I get to choose, right?" The whole issue has brought back a lot of childhood memories. The continual comparison to Angelina, the sensation that nothing I do is ever good enough for my parents. I thought I'd moved on from that, but the surrogacy turmoil has brought it all back to the surface. I tried talking to Angelina one-on-one in the hopes that she would comprehend my point of view, but she refused to listen. She repeatedly says, "You've always been selfish, and you've never cared about anyone but yourself." It's as if she is rewriting our entire history to fit this narrative in which I'm the terrible person. Tom has been strangely quiet during this affair. When I tried to talk to him about it, he simply said it was between Angelina and me. But shouldn't he have a say over who bears his child? His lack of involvement has me skeptical, but I can't put my finger on why. I do not know what to do. Part of me wants to yield just to end the drama, but I know that is not the appropriate motivation to become a surrogate. Another part of me wants to cut ties with everyone and start over somewhere else. I've been considering shifting to my company's office in another city just to get away from it all. But is running away truly the solution? And what if Angelina tries to carry out this surrogacy plan with someone else? Should I warn them? I suppose I'm writing this to test whether I'm nuts. Am I wrong for refusing to be my sister's surrogate? How do I deal with this circumstance without losing my family completely? Any help would be greatly appreciated, as I now feel like I'm drowning in family drama with no way out. Update 1. It has been 3 weeks since my last article, and the issue has become even more convoluted. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left comments on my first post. Your encouragement and guidance made me feel less insane about the entire thing. I took your advice to heart and chose to stand my ground. I told my family that I would not be a surrogate no matter how hard they pressed me. For a while, things were too calm. Last week, I received a call from a number I did not know. When I replied, it was a woman claiming to represent a surrogacy agency. She began discussing how they had received my application and were eager to move on with the process. I was confused at first, then frightened when I realized what had happened. Angelina had filed a surrogacy application in my name. She had taken my personal information, forged my signature, and even submitted medical records that she had obtained in some way. I was furious. This wasn't simply crossing a boundary. It was identity theft. I immediately called the agency back and explained the situation. They were understanding but suggested that I make a police report to protect myself. I was torn. Filing a police report might land Angelina in significant legal danger. At the same moment, she committed an illegal act and violated my privacy severely. I recalled all the instances in our youth when Angelina got away with something because I didn't want to get her in trouble, like when she shattered Mom's favorite vase and blamed it on me, or when she stole my car in college and got into an accident. After much thinking, I decided to submit the report. It was not an easy decision, but I felt compelled to protect myself. What if Angelina did something like this again? The fallout was swift and severe. Angelina called me, shouting that I was attempting to ruin her life. Mom and Dad were outraged, telling me that I was ripping the family apart. Even Tom, who had generally been silent throughout the episode, left me a furious voicemail. But this is where things become even more difficult. Remember how I mentioned that Angelina and Tom had been trying to have a baby for years? Well, there's a reason behind that. A common buddy contacted me after hearing about the police report. She told me something I didn't know. Tom had a vasectomy years before he met Angelina. This discovery hit me hard, not only because it meant Angelina had been lying about their fertility issues, but also because it reminded me of when Angelina and Tom initially started dating. Years earlier, I overheard a chat between them at a family cookout. Tom had mentioned that he did not want children, and Angelina concurred, stating she was also unsure about motherhood. I hadn't given it much attention at the time, but it suddenly felt significant. Tom apparently did not desire children. He told Angelina this when they first started dating, and she stated she was fine with it. However, as the years passed, Angelina got enamored with the prospect of having a baby. She began pressing Tom, who eventually agreed to consider adoption or surrogacy to make her happy. This new information led me to doubt everything. Why was Angelina so desperate for a baby when she had previously been content with not having children? And why go to such measures to make me a surrogate when you could simply adopt or locate a willing surrogate through normal channels? I wasn't sure what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to face Angelina and reveal all her falsehoods, but another part of me felt bad for her. Was she so desperate for a baby that she would engage in such deception? In the end, I opted to speak with Tom first. I met him for coffee and told him everything, including Angelina's falsehoods, the surrogacy push, and what a mutual acquaintance had told me. Tom was shocked. He stated that he had agreed to Angelina's surrogacy plan because he felt it would make her happy, but he was unaware of the magnitude of her deception. As we talked, Tom opened up about his own marital troubles. He admitted that he and Angelina had been having troubles for years, primarily due to their disagreement about having children. He stated he had pondered leaving several times but stayed because he loved Angelina and hoped she would alter her mind about having children. Tom seemed shocked as he exited our meeting. I felt awful for him, but also relieved that the truth was finally being revealed. I wondered whether this would be the push he needed to finally confront Angelina and possibly end their marriage. As for Angelina and my parents, I'm still unsure how to continue. The police are investigating the identity theft, and I'm concerned about what will happen to Angelina. Despite everything, she is still my sister. I keep remembering back to our youth, to the times when we truly got along, like the summer we spent at our grandparents' farm, sitting up late to watch meteor showers and collecting fireflies in jars. It's difficult to reconcile those recollections with who Angelina has become. Mom and Dad are still not speaking with me. They believe I'm making things up to get out of being a surrogate. It aches, but I'm trying to be tough. I've begun seeing a therapist to help me cope with the stress and complex feelings that this scenario has brought up. I'm seriously considering moving out of state for a while to get away from all the turmoil. My employer has an office in another city, and I'm considering requesting a transfer. The prospect of a fresh start is appealing, but I'm also concerned about running away from my troubles. So that's where things are now. My family is in tatters, my sister may be in legal problems, and I'm considering starting afresh in a different city. I didn't expect to be where I am now a month ago, but that is life. I'll keep everyone updated on what occurs next. Thank you again for all of your help. It means more than you realize. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my previous update, and just as I thought things couldn't be any more complicated, life threw me another curveball. First, let me catch you up on what has been happening. Angelina was charged with fraud following the identity theft incident. It was a misdemeanor, but she had to pay a fine and complete community service. Tom filed for divorce, unable to overcome Angelina's falsehoods about desiring children and the entire surrogacy disaster. I did, in fact, accept that transfer. I've been living in a different place for the past month, attempting to rebuild my life away from all of the family pain. It's been challenging, but also refreshing. I found some new acquaintances, put myself into work, and even begun seeing a therapist to deal with the stress of the last several months. But this is when things take a surprising turn. My mom called me last week. My parents had not spoken to me since the police report, so I was startled to hear from her. I almost did not respond, but something told me I should. When I picked up, my mother was in tears. She managed to tell me about Angelina's pregnancy despite her cries. Naturally, I was perplexed. How could Angelina be pregnant if Tom had a vasectomy and they were getting divorced? Well, it turns out that the baby is not Tom's. It isn't even biologically Angelina's. My mother eventually revealed the truth. Angelina had been lying about everything since the beginning. Angelina is not infertile. She never has been. The entire trying for years story was a pure lie. She wanted me to be a surrogate because she didn't want to go through the pregnancy herself. Apparently, Angelina has always been afraid of pregnancy and childbirth. This concern derives from a horrific occurrence she experienced as a teenager that I was unaware of. When Angelina was 16, she witnessed our cousin's difficult pregnancy and near-fatal birth. It had a lasting impression on her, instilling a strong fear of pregnancy. But Angelina too desperately wanted a baby, or so she thought. When Tom told her he didn't want children, she saw it as an ideal chance. She might play the needy and fertile wife and coerce someone else, me, into carrying a baby for her. But when her plan with me fell through, she panicked. She began seeing this person behind Tom's back. Let us call him Mike. Mike got her pregnant, and Angelina is suddenly confronted with the same situation she was attempting to avoid. I was speechless. All of our family's drama and pain sprang from Angelina's fear of being pregnant. It seemed too ludicrous to be true. But as my mother talked, more truths emerged. My parents stated that they had been aware of Angelina's pregnancy fear for many years. They agreed to her surrogacy idea because they believed it would help her overcome her fear. They never considered how it would affect me or how wrong it was to coerce someone into becoming a surrogate. I felt a mixture of emotions. Rage at the deception, relief that the truth had finally been revealed, and a strange sense of vindication. After months of being called selfish and callous, it turns out I was correct all along. My mother spent a long time apologizing. She and my father understood how horribly they had messed up and how unfairly they treated me. They asked whether I could forgive them. I informed her that I needed time to comprehend things. The realization that my entire family had been lying to me for months, if not years, was difficult to process. I replied that I'd think about it and get back to her. Angelina appears to be a hot mess. The pregnancy she worked so hard to avoid has become a reality. Tom refuses to take her back, and Mike wants nothing to do with the baby. She is alone, afraid, and finally confronting the repercussions of her choices. A part of me feels sad for her, but another is still outraged at all the agony she has caused. I'm not sure whether I'll ever be able to have a connection with her again, but I'm trying to find faith in my heart that she'll get the care she needs. So that's where things are now. My family's web of falsehoods has finally unraveled, leaving us all to deal with the consequences. I'm still absorbing everything and trying to figure out how to proceed. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I do know this. I'm glad I kept my stand. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that you should always believe your instincts, even if everyone else tells you otherwise. The entire event has caused me to ponder on our family dynamics. Growing up, Angelina was always the golden child, while I was the black sheep. Now, it appears that those roles have been flipped. It's an unusual sensation, and I'm not sure how to manage it. I've talked to my therapist about it all. She's guiding me through my feelings of betrayal and rage. It's a slow process, but I'm starting to see results. Regarding my job, the change has been a blessing. I'm working on an intriguing new project that keeps me occupied and diverted from the family drama. My new coworkers are wonderful, and I'm slowly beginning to feel like I belong here. I am still unsure how to proceed with my family. Part of me wants to forgive them and try to repair our connection. Another part of me is frightened of being harmed again. I keep thinking about how many times I've forgiven them only to see them revert back to their old ways. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. I've informed my folks I need space, and they're surprisingly understanding. Angelina has tried to contact me several times, but I'm not ready to talk to her yet. I'll keep you updated if anything important happens, but for the time being, I'm focusing on healing and going forward with my life. Thank you for your continued support throughout this insane adventure. Update 3. It's been half a year since my last update, so I thought it was appropriate to share where things are now. A lot has changed, and while not everything is perfect, I believe I'm now in a decent place. First, the major news. Angelina gave birth to a little girl around 2 months ago. Despite her anxieties, the pregnancy and birth went well, according to what I've heard. She is adjusting to motherhood better than anyone expected. It appears that the reality of having a child has shifted her perspective on many issues. I wasn't present at the birth, but my parents kept me updated. They sent me images of the baby, and I must admit, she's lovely. It's weird to believe I have a niece now, especially with everything that has transpired. My relationship with my family is difficult. After reflecting on everything, I decided to give my parents the opportunity to make amends. We've had many lengthy, challenging discussions on trust, respect, and boundaries. They have apologized several times and appear to sincerely grasp how bad their acts were. We are gradually restoring our relationship, but it is not the same as before. I'm more careful and guarded now, but I'm also proud of myself for establishing and maintaining clear boundaries. My parents understand that if they try to manipulate or pressure me again, I will not hesitate to cut them off altogether. My friendship with Angelina remains strained. I've seen her and the infant several times, always with other family members present. It's awkward and stressful, but we're respectful. Angelina has apologized for her behavior, but I'm not quite ready to forgive her yet. The loss of confidence was massive, and it will take a long time to recover, if it ever does. Angelina is struggling as a single mother, but she is receiving support from our parents and attending treatment to address her worries and difficulties. She has even formed a support group for ladies suffering from tocophobia, fear of pregnancy and childbirth. It's encouraging to see her take measures to confront her issues, even if it's too late to reverse the damage she's created. On a personal note, I am doing great. I've opted to stay in the new city. I've created a life here that I'm content with. My career is going well, and I've made some amazing friends. I've even begun seeing someone. It's early days, but it feels nice to be progressing. The entire surrogacy drama feels like a distant nightmare now. Looking back, I can't believe how insane things went, but I'm glad I had the experience. It taught me a lot about sticking up for myself, setting boundaries, and refusing to compromise my values, even when it was painful. I've also learned a lot about forgiveness, both offering and receiving it. It's not easy, and it won't happen tomorrow, but it is doable. I'm still working on forgiving Angelina, but I've discovered that hanging on to my resentment only harms me in the long term. My therapist has been quite helpful in guiding me through all of this. We've started looking into my childhood experiences and how they've influenced my relationships with my family. It's been eye-opening to see how many of our current problems derive from long-standing patterns. One of the most difficult obstacles has been learning to accept my parents and Angelina as flawed individuals rather than the larger-than-life figures they were while I was growing up. It's a process, but I'm getting there. I've also been attempting to establish a support system outside of my family. My new friends here have been fantastic, providing support and understanding without judgment. It made me realize how much I was missing by constantly prioritizing my family. So that is where things stand right now. My family is slowly recuperating, but we will never be the same as before. I'm creating a life I enjoy on my own terms, and most importantly, I'm content with my choices. To anyone in a similar circumstance, stay firm, believe your instincts, and don't let anyone pressure you into doing something you're not comfortable with. even if they're family. Always make your own decisions about your body. Thank you for your continued support along this journey. Your advice and encouragement benefited me more than you realize. I am not sure if I will update again, but I wanted to let you know that I'm okay. Better than fine. I'm thriving. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Yelled at my wife for not going to work parties. Ran to my mom's house and came back 3 days later to find out she's pregnant. Now I'm realizing I might be the problem. Okay. Context. I am 33M. My wife 27F is a sweet and loving person. We've been married for 5 years. And she is really the love of my life. And she truly makes me happy. She really does. However, she's been getting mad at me over a very stupid thing recently, to the point where I wasn't comfortable staying in the same house as her. I own the house. She cooks, I clean. We both work. It's a good system. I work in construction, but it's really a cubicle job. We have regular work parties to celebrate big wins, and some of us go to bars afterward. These parties are sort of big, and all of my coworkers bring their wives. You can see where this is going. After constantly being questioned, I asked my wife to come. She said she didn't want to, because after work she's usually exhausted. She's a social worker. I don't buy that excuse because it's just a party for a few hours, and then she can go home. When me and my coworkers go to the bar, I said this, and she said that it wouldn't be safe for her to go home alone at night. I offered to drop her off, and she told me to drop it. I went to the party and got pestered. I ended up not going to the bar and came home in a bad mood. Admittedly, I shouted a bit, said that it was annoying that I make it look like I'm not married or that I'm kidnapping you or whatever. She didn't really yell back, and I was hella confused. And then she asked me why I was so bothered. I said it was embarrassing, and then she shook her head as if mocking me. Here's where I might be in the wrong. I called her an asshole and stormed out to my mother's. I don't like going to my mother's because she often sides with my wife more than me, and it's stupid. I haven't told her why I was there and told her that I just missed her. So anyway, am I wrong? She hasn't texted me yet, and it only makes me feel like she doesn't care about me at all. Edit. I am still currently at my mother's house. Honestly, the comments have eaten me up alive, and I actually may be in the wrong about all this. But I do want to give context about the parties. They are a constant thing, like every other Friday type party, ATP. I don't even know what we're celebrating, but they are fun. My coworkers are also really heavy drinkers. I don't just mean that they ask me questions about my wife, like, where is she? Sure, it starts like that in the beginning, but the questions progress, get worse, and if I tell anyone to back off, I am the villain. And yes, I do leave the parties when I get uncomfortable, but when I don't go to the parties, I get pestered during the day. So what's the point? Finally, my wife has gone to a party of mine once or twice, and it's not like she said, it's not her thing. She's enjoyed them before. So why deny me now? Anyway, I probably am in the wrong for leaving to stay with my mother, and I just hope she isn't thinking about doing what some of you have said in divorcing me. It really isn't that serious. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. You have no idea how emotionally draining and stressful it is being a social worker. She deals with issues on behalf of those that usually can't speak for themselves. And she also sees people in deplorable condition, listens to their stories, and tries to find them assistance. Your attitude that she works just 8 hours is total BS. Those 8 hours can feel like 8 years, and the things she has to deal with aren't something you can easily leave at work. It's not an easy job. If she doesn't want to go, she doesn't have to. And she went a couple times just to please you. What the hell more do you want? If you are embarrassed by not having your wife attend a party, that's a you problem. You are wrong for yelling at her, cussing her, pestering her to go, and for running home to hide behind mommy's apron strings. Grow a pair and treat your wife as a man should. OP. She didn't go just because I wanted her to. When I asked, she said yes, and I know she had a good time. It's just that the parties have gotten more intense lately because of my coworkers' flirtation/criticism. Comment 2. A lot of good comments. I just want to say stop going to the party at this point. It's just an excuse to drink unless you are actually celebrating something. Tell them you have things to do with your wife, and she is more important than a weekly party. OP, the parties are a good time though. I do hang out with my wife when I get home if she's not already asleep, but she usually is. That's kind of my point. She's already asleep, so I might as well do something fun while I wait. But at the same time, if she didn't have to go to a party, then she would be asleep, so I'm just taking time away from her. I don't know. I'm obsessively checking the comments because she still hasn't texted me, nor have I her. Comment 3. Your mom keeps siding with your wife because your wife is right. What a childish overreaction. Comment 4. You're wrong. Your wife is a social worker. See that word? Social. That's what your wife does all day long. Socializing. Don't you think she deserves a little quiet time to reset for the next day? Social work can be one of the most mentally draining careers there is. Then she has a husband who can't respect her need for downtime. When he doesn't get his way, he goes running home to mommy. How long do you think she'll take before realizing how emotionally immature you are? Update. August 8, 2024. I didn't know if I should add the update here or make a new post, but here it is. She didn't want to go to the party because she's pregnant. She just didn't know how to tell me. The past 3 days I stayed at my mom's. She didn't contact me at all. It really hurt and I was worried. I came back today, and she was in our bedroom. I said hi. She gave me the pregnancy test and left to her friends. I was stunned. Why didn't she just tell me? That would have saved us so much time. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I admit that I was definitely wrong for yelling at her, and it was childish to go to my mom. A lot of you said that she probably sides with my wife because my wife is always right. That might be true. 3 days of reflection really showed me that I love my wife, and I think I'm ready to be a dad. I don't know. I don't think she's going to leave me, not with a baby. She needs me still. I wish she would have just said that she was pregnant, and I would have just let it go. In fact, I might have not even gone to that damn party. Edit. My wife came home today and sat me down. We had a very long talk about us, about the baby, about me. I expected this, but she basically said that she felt that sometimes I let my anger blow out and that I went to my mother way too much. I wish I went on an advice for him too, but I sort of just sat there while she talked, hoping that she would cool herself down. Seeing her voice the same opinions that you guys had sort of solidified everything in my head. I am a huge asshole and I really don't deserve my wife. I am not ready for this baby, but my wife has decided to keep it, and though most of you guys will hate this, she is not divorcing me. A comment mentioned couples therapy, so I kind of just threw it out there when she was done talking, and I guess it was enough to give us a chance still. So next week we're doing that. I guess I'm still on the fence, but wifey has suggested that I have individual therapy too, and I just really want this to work out, so I agreed. Not sure when that is happening though. As for the parties, I'm no longer going, especially now that a baby's on the way. There is no need for a drink, last thing I need really. I doubt that it'll go anywhere, but I'm also thinking of getting a new job somewhere away from my, as you guys put it, alcoholic coworkers. Thank you for the blunt and harsh comments. Who knew that all it took was a bunch of internet strangers to tell me how wrong I was? It almost took my relationship too. Now for some comments. Comment 1. As others had said, she doesn't need you just because she is having a child. There are tons of single mothers out there who say it was 10 times better doing it alone than dealing with their husband's issues. My sister is a single mom, and while she struggles financially, she loves the freedom it gives her. She makes the decisions for her and her son. No more dealing with her ex's BS. You need to do some major grueling. I would find a thoughtful pregnancy gift for her. Plan a date night or something special for her. You need to show her you need her. You messed up big leaving for your mother's house for something so small. Right now she's thinking she is about to have a child with a child. You need to sit down and have a long conversation apologizing for what you did wrong and explain how you won't do it again. I'm sure she's concerned down the line if you have another disagreement. When she doesn't do something you want her to do, is she always going to have that overhead that you'll just leave? And what happens when it really gets real and there are actual heart issues at hand? Marriage is filled with tons of ups and downs. You can't just run off like that. OP. I wish I saw this comment before we had a talk. Thank you so much. I'm going to buy a shitload of gifts as soon as I can. Thank you. Comment 2. She needs me still. So you don't actually care about your wife or her feelings. You think she can't leave you because she needs you? You're in for a rude awakening. Your absence likely showed her she doesn't need you at all. Comment 3. What does she need you for? To yell at her? Or better yet, yell at the child? She's a social worker. She's seen the worst of the worst. And you yelling at her when she found out she was pregnant could have been eye-opening. Not knowing is not an excuse. You don't talk to someone you supposedly love like that. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.